pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we do have an adjustment to the agenda. We would like to elect officers for the 2018-2019 school year, and I will entertain motions for the position of chair.
I'll nominate Melissa, I guess.
Not really understanding Robert's rules. Can we throw out other nominations now, or do we have to go through the second?
There is a nomination on the floor.
We have to get a second.
We have to have a second, and it is possible after that to nominate others. So is there a second? I have a motion for Melissa. Is there a second? Hearing no second. Are there any other nominations?
I nominate Mike.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
All those in favor? Those opposed? Abstain? Votes 4 in favor, none against, and 1 abstention. Vice Chair.
I nominate Melissa Lee for vice chair.
A second.
Okay.
All in favor? All opposed? All abstain.
Help me with the names.
I can't guarantee the spelling, but.
Okay. Okay.
We need an AOS board member. The AOS board member, there are 2 board members from Lubec that attend every AOS meeting, since we have majority share of the population and money going to the AOS. So we need an AOS member and an AOS alternate, okay, to attend these meetings. So, and usually, we kind of look for a volunteer to do this, okay? You can get mileage out of it, so you pay mileage from here to wherever the meeting is, usually Pembroke or Alexander, somewhere like that, so. And then we want to be the AOS board member.
Mike, I'm sorry to interrupt your vote. Each town has 2 AOS members and an alternate, that if one of those can't make it, we've changed the rules.
No, each town does not have 2 members.
They do not.
Lubec and Eastport have 2 members. So if the group is curious, voting power is determined by the population of your town, U.S. Census. Cost sharing is determined by percentage of resident students. But Eastport and Lubec are the only ones with 2 members on the AOS board. The other towns just have 1.
Then why are we considering one an alternate and not two members from Lubec? And vote somebody as an alternate in case one of them can't make it. Because if you only have 1 member and 1 alternate, that alternate may not realize they have to go to
Because at
the
any
meeting.
time, the board chair or the vice chair can attend these meetings.
I didn't hear you, Mike.
At any time, the board chair and the vice chair can attend these meetings and become a vote.
That's something new that I was never aware of. When did that change? I'm just curious, Mike, if you know when.
It's been that way for a number of years now. So
I know the
sometimes
AOS
a member can't make it and the board or vice chair will go.
I just want to make sure we get 2 votes at all times and an alternate.
Mike, I just ask one question real quick. How many times a year, I can't remember that you meet, does the AOS meet?
4, maybe 6 at the most.
Thank you, Mike, I'm sorry.
Weekends or
During the
nights?
It's during the week usually.
Usually over at Gary?
Pembroke.
Pembroke. After 5? Yeah, they're at
Oh, yeah.
6.
So
So
any
you're
interest
looking
in,
for volunteers?
I prefer to have volunteers because it does, it takes up another weeknight. And like I said, it's between 4 and 6 meetings a year.
I'll do it. I did it last year.
Okay.
Familiar with it?
And I'll be the alternate.
Yeah,
Okay.
Leonard and I both went last year together.
So, they have you two as AOS board members. The board agree with that? All in favor? Now we can proceed.
Can we see the vote again for the minutes?
3, 4, 5, they can vote for
Well,
themselves.
for the minutes, for last
No,
month's
no.
minutes, I can't vote.
For the minutes he's
No.
taking.
Oh,
here for
oh,
the
oh,
minutes of the meeting.
Is that an extra?
Yeah, those are extras.
Okay. Do we have any public participation tonight? Wanda?
I'm wondering about one thing, and I'll address Mr. Johnson. When do we expect to have a budget committee meeting?
This particular group doesn't have any control over the budget committee's agenda, and I do not either. It is up to this group if they want to have a meeting of the budget committee. There isn't anything to prevent that from happening. If this group wants to have another joint meeting with the budget committee, all that is required is a simple motion, second, and a vote, and we can try and get something on the calendar.
I think we can bring that up into item number 4 on the
Oh,
on
okay.
the agenda here.
And I wondered too, real quick, about the nursing. What was the decision at the end of the year?
For the school nurse,
Yeah,
I engaged the Healthways Health Center right here in Lubec, and I actually spoke with Marilyn today. And the update that I had is that they, when I say they, the health center does not have official word on the status of the grant. They did apply. Marilyn expects to hear pretty much any day now. I did ask our previous nurse who services the other schools in the district that on the off chance that Lubec doesn't get the grant, would she be willing to pick us up? And she said that she would. So we've got it covered either way. If the grant comes through, Marilyn believes that she will be able to fill the position. And if for some strange reason it doesn't, and she's very confident that Lubec will get it based on demographics in the grant, if for some reason we don't, we've got it covered. At this point, we're waiting to hear from the medical center, but Marilyn is very optimistic that Lubec will enjoy an enhanced level of service with a nurse funded through that position.
and with they're reinstating the public health nurses. Now, are they able to do anything in the public school systems?
Strictly speaking, the rule is a school nurse has to have certification. However, it is a finer point in the law whether or not somebody is an employee of the school or a contracted service. Your previous nurse that was providing the services was indeed an RN, fully qualified, but she functioned more as a contracted service because she did not have the actual state certification for a school nurse. So that really isn't a violation. But we do in fact need a registered nurse to review immunization records, do health and vision screenings and that stuff, so we need the service.
And if Mike will allow me one more question.
Go ahead.
Are we in the league, our sports league, are we in the league that we're supposed to be in this fall?
We are in the same leagues that we were in at the end of last year.
That doesn't really answer that.
That's a yes.
Question, Mr. Johnson.
That is a yes, we are in the small
Okay.
school league.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you.
And I had a question about the nurse.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify, and I've already spoke to people who are involved in the Lubec school budget, that my son is removed. His school that he is now attending, his budget comes from the overall state budget, and I don't want him to be used for double dipping. Please remove his name from the Lubec school budget. I just want to clarify that. And I have want to throw something out to the board members. Please use non-bias when making decisions. had a lot of that problem lately, and that's one of the reasons why I removed my son from the school, and it's pretty sad. And I do hope every child is treated equally, no matter what family they come from, what their background is, what their financial position is. That shouldn't be, and where you're from. I'm from Massachusetts. You can call me any acronym you want. I've had Maine families move down to my town. Never once have I heard of a PFA in my life until I got here. We always just accepted those people from all over the U.S. and the world. We are all Homo sapiens, no matter if you're from Timbuktu or Kathmandu, it don't matter. Your children in our school, they need every equality, please, non-bias, please. That's all we're asking for. Isn't trying to ruffle the feathers or anything, but that is what needs to be done. Honestly, I mean, use moral and ethical values when making your decisions. That's all I'm asking the school board, please. And then your school will be fine. Thank you.
I had a question too, about back to the nurse or back to, last year we couldn't do the sports physicals because, so what's gonna happen this year with that? Do we still find our own, cause my son's gonna play soccer again, so what, is there gonna be any change in that, like,
I can answer that. I called the medical center on Tuesday, and then I called them again today because they hadn't gotten back to us, and they still do not know if they would have somebody available. What I was told is the two people, I'm not sure if they're family practitioners, nurse practitioners, are on vacation this week, and that they would get back to us as soon as they could. That was one of the things I had in my principal's report. So I have what we've tried, but I don't have an answer, because I don't have an answer from the medical center.
so you can't make a decision on when the cutoff has to be for this physicals until,
We can make a decision, but I don't have an answer. I mean, they could call me tomorrow and say, yes, we can do it, or I might not hear from them until next week or next month.
Last year, we couldn't do it at all.
They couldn't do it at all.
well, that's why I didn't know what was going on this year with that.
Physicals are good for a year.
Yeah, but
But I mean, if they
it
had,
runs out again, because we had it last year before soccer season, so it's gonna be running out again.
Right.
What is Eastport doing?
Eastport in years past had been able to access the clinic in Eastport, but they could not do that last year. And the expectation and practice now in Eastport is that the parents will take the child to whoever the child sees as a regular physician.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know, whether to do that or not for our son or not. If they were down to school, it'd be easier than everybody else if that was gonna be offered, or, because I can, take it over to Machias.
I would say that right now, that's probably what you're probably best doing.
I saw there was several athletic positions gonna be approved tonight on the agenda maybe, or voted on or something. I didn't see volleyball there, I was just curious, is that something that was took care of in the fall? Or, okay.
In the spring.
Good, oh, in the spring, okay, great, thank you. I just wasn't sure.
I have a question of, with the same thing about the nurses and the physicals and everything. Why isn't this set up in the spring? Why is it, why are we making the phone calls a couple weeks before school starts? Why isn't this pre-planned ahead of time? It seems to be more efficient if it was.
Part of the reason, I believe, is the way your code reads, because in the springtime, you're still part of the previous year, whereas in the fall, even though on the calendar, this is almost September, we're moving toward the end of the calendar year, we're just starting the school year. So for physicals that we typically schedule in September, when we can, that's really considered the start of the year. And if we were to do it in the spring, as you're suggesting, it would be under the previous school year.
Well, I'm not suggesting that it be enacted under that, but that we actually have a plan in place so that when it comes time to start this new plan, that isn't the day that we start making the phone calls. We can make the phone calls and have this set up ahead of time so that we know the procedure, and when it comes time to enact it, we already have our homework done. I just would like something more
Perhaps I
efficient.
misunderstood, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Make a note of that, see if we can do that next year.
I don't know if we should start making dates on a calendar. Yeah. Mike, you have a question?
I have a couple of questions. Like our students, we have plays, we have sporting events, we have parent teachers, a bunch of different things that our students do. And what I was kind of curious about was what exactly, this is to Mr. Johnson, have you done for our students? I have never seen you. Now, I know you're busy, I know you do a bunch of different schools, but usually when I went to school, everybody was a superintendent. Superintendent was around the school a lot, interacting with the kids and everything. That way we get to know the students a little bit instead of only knowing the faculty members. You know, I think it's best as a community for the kids and everything if a person had time to attend anything at all that's kid-related. And I've never ever seen you at anything, so I was kind of wondering what exactly do you do to support the kids in our school?
I would answer that question by saying, by definition, a great deal of my job description is indeed support. If you're wondering what do I do to support the kids at the school, it is my office that prepares your budget materials, and it is me personally who approves your spending, that buys the pens and the pencils and the supplies to keep the bathrooms clean, and the curriculum materials that the kids use, and the books that they read, and the paper that they write on. I have heard the job of superintendent described as a facilitator. No, I'm not in the classroom providing direct instruction, and I'm not there every day like the principal is, but if the teachers or the principals need something, they need my signature, followed by the board member's signature on the warrant to physically make it happen. I've heard the superintendent's job description to be primarily a supporting role, because I bear a high degree of responsibility for the financial operations of the school, and essentially make sure that the kids have the physical materials that they need, like those items that I mentioned, as well as the teachers are compensated for their direct services to the students. So you're correct, sir. I'm not in the school every day, and the average student probably couldn't say what my name was. I'm sure there are a few who know generally that the tall man is the superintendent, but they probably couldn't say what my name was. And we try and do a better job of that, in fairness.
Well, I was just curious.
Yep.
And the other question I had was also Mr. Johnson. Last year at the beginning of the meetings, the way I understood it is he was going to see to it that the students would get proper, someone would represent them properly at the principals' meetings when they get together.
Yeah. You're talking about the athletic league, right? I'm with you. Okay.
It's the only person that can vote if that person is never there. We're never going to have a vote. I don't care if there's 10 people from this school that's there. You cannot vote. You have to be present to vote. And I was assured that someone was going to be attending these meetings last year. And I called all the schools. I got the list. I got the dates. We didn't have anybody there to vote. So what could you do to assure the people that you might actually see to it that our students have a say at these meetings? I mean, you said last year you was going to take care of it, but you didn't. So now that we're a whole year, what could you do to assure everybody that you might actually mean it this time?
The only way that you can satisfy the requirement that you're referring to, which is indeed a requirement of the league we participate in, is to have the principal be at the meeting. And you correctly stated it, that only the principal can vote. That is a rule of the league.
And have to be present.
Yeah. And so that is indeed the answer to your question.
Okay, so exactly how many years has it been since we've had anybody represent us in that league?
Well, I know that the principal represented you on at least one occasion, because I recall us discussing it, and the principal attended with the athletic director via distance, whether it was Skype or over the computer or something.
You have to be present to make a vote.
Well, I believe the vote was taken
Nobody
on that
has been
day.
present for a very long time that is allowed to vote. I mean, you can come up with these different answers, but the bottom line is, The kids have had no representation, and there has been nobody there to vote for a number of years. Now, last year, when you assured us that you would see to it that the kids was represented and someone would be there to vote, I actually thought you were serious.
Yeah.
And I had brought it up at the meeting towards the end of the year, and there was a meeting on June 6th, and still nothing.
Had eighth grade graduation, something's gotta give.
The day before,
June 5th, because it was
And
Kate's
Sean, I
birthday.
believe that we did one Skype and we went to one together.
Yep.
And then
Well,
I went to
on
the
the-
third one and sat for 45
They don't have
minutes
anybody
before
present.
anybody showed up.
Yeah,
I know,
we
I
did
knew you
vote.
was there,
Yeah, I was there.
but I do know the principal was not present at the
Sean, was
meeting.
I with you at the meeting?
Yeah, we went to one and we done Skype on another one.
Well, then someone ought to let all the schools know and the people that's doing the paperwork, because we've got zero. She did not show up to any. Sean showed up, so either the other school's are lying or someone here's lying. I'm not gonna, somebody's not telling the
Mr.
truth.
Jenkins, could we?
When is the
work on
next
this?
meeting? When is the next meeting?
I don't know.
Do we know when the next meeting is?
I don't know either.
Okay. Can we find out when the next meeting is and actually have someone show up?
I don't think I'm gonna be involved in it this year. We have, I think, after tonight, we're gonna have another athletic director.
But he still can't vote either.
No,
Even if he goes, it's
Okay,
nothing
so
to
the
do
next
with
meeting-
that.
no, but I'm just saying, I won't be.
No,
finding
no,
out.
no,
Right,
but I'm
okay,
just saying.
okay.
if-
Please,
Sorry.
please. What I'd like to do is make sure that at the next meeting, the principal is actually present to vote with the athletic director. Can we do that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I don't like to be a thorn or anything, but this same exact thing was said last year.
Okay, Tracy, I understand.
And
We
went a
can't
whole year.
relive last year,
No,
but
but
I understand.
there needs to be consequences
Okay.
for somebody who's not doing their job.
I
It's
understand-
mine.
I understand what you're saying, okay? I've just asked here,
Right.
in front of everyone here, and the camera, and she will attend that meeting with the athletic director who will be here tonight.
Thank you.
I have a question on that. Why is there a lack of information on the calendar of the meetings, and why isn't that made public? So that the people can know when the meetings are occurring, so that maybe we as a board could give a reminder coming up, or get a report back from that meeting. So
Not being
that-
at one of those meetings, Sean's been to a few
Yeah, I've
of
been
them.
to quite a few of them. They're kind of spur of the moment. They really are. There isn't a meeting scheduled at this time. They're talking about soccer. They said there was no need for a meeting this spring, because I know because I got a couple of emails, and there's already a soccer schedule out, so there won't be a meeting before soccer. And they were going to have a meeting at the end of the season last year to discuss soccer early, and that we had something happen, and there was only 2 people that could attend the meeting that day, and so they didn't have that meeting as well. But you never know. It's usually we get a week or 10 days in advance notice of the meetings.
Is there a way that the board chair could be CC'd in on that, so it's just another person to
Well,
give a
like,
little extra
Who's on that
reminder?
mailing list?
Yeah. Just add a
That's
name
the-
on.
The president of the league sets all of that stuff.
Right.
Is that still the principal at BRS?
Are you on the
No.
mailing list now?
It depends on the sport, actually. Paul done basketball.
Yeah.
Trudy just set the soccer schedule. It's you just really never know.
But it only takes a phone.
So if you're not on the mailing list, you don't know when the meetings are.
Right? I mean, I'm on the mailing list, and I haven't heard a thing. It's that they'll shoot me an email. There is a contact list, and I was the one that asked to have that made last year because we didn't really have one. And we made a contact list, and I haven't been notified of a meeting as of yet. I have been notified that there is a soccer schedule, and I have been notified by the other league that we played in last year. They're waiting to hear back from us about soccer/volleyball. So I'm assuming we're gonna not be in the soccer league, but we are in the volleyball league. We're waiting on an athletic director to do this. I haven't done it because I'm not taking the position.
Yeah, I've got a note here that, have them follow up on that. Make sure-
And I have contacted the person that may be the athletic director and have tried to give him some information.
Another thing I was wondering is if anybody let Woodland, Callis, Machias know.
That's what Sean was.
Yeah, I mean, because I think they think
Yes,
Lubec's playing because they haven't heard any different.
right, they do.
So I believe they've already scheduled it.
Yeah, I'm not sure, I haven't got a schedule, but I did get they asked if we were gonna be in the leagues, and I just basically put off answering that, because I don't really know the answer.
But
We'll have
that
the
makes us
new-
look
we'll have the
bad.
new AD take care of this and.
Right,
we'll give
and
him-
I can help him, and I'm willing to help him with it, I have the information.
That'd be great,
so.
thank you. Any more public participation? Hearing none. Principals report, actually, minutes from the last meeting, June 14th. Do you have a copy of those?
I do.
Considering that there were only 2 board members on the board that are now present here.
Well, I say I do.
With only 2 board members present who were at the meeting. A motion to approve these.
I have an amendment. I believe there was public participation on this. It says there was no public participation. I believe we had,
I believe there was.
at least a 30-minute public participation.
It was recorded. What I suspect that is that the format is saved on Helen's computer, so if you want to table the minutes until next time, we can approve both sets.
We had a lengthy public participation.
Yeah. I want that noted in the minutes that we had
Right, so,
participation.
and that's recorded. What I suspect happened is that when the minutes were pulled up for formatting, that the pre-existing format was left there, so if this board isn't comfortable approving the minutes,
I find that a little
We'll put
too
that on the-
inconvenient.
we can just table them. We'll
Yeah,
approve them next
I
time.
won't approve these
Maybe
minutes.
We'll get that, recording. So, now, principals report.
As far as the website goes, I did speak with Nate on Monday. He is continuing to move forward and working with the school messenger program, and he will update me with any progress that he makes. I don't believe he has done anything with it this summer. Last year, we did a parental letter for parents to transport students for sports. Is that something that the board wishes to do? Looking at where we are with buses and bus drivers and
There was some confusion on that. So, when a bus was available, when a bus wasn't available, and so on like that, and communication getting out. We can improve that a little bit.
I can send home a letter. Well, I'll pull together a letter and send it to Kenny for him to read it. And I'm not sure, it's gonna be hard to tell where we are with buses in terms of drivers resigning and buses not passing inspection, and maybe one day we have a bus and the next day we don't. So I don't know if I can do kind of like a generic letter that says, should the circumstance come up that we don't have a bus or a driver, would you give permission for your child to be transported outside of the school or something like that?
Had the website. It's been a year.
The next thing was bus dismissal last year, and I'm assuming it will stay into effect this year. The board had been put into effect that dismissal time, bus students would be dismissed first, parents would wait outside of the building until walkers go. Is that something you want to continue
That
with?
I think has worked out fairly well.
And also the procedure for entering the building, where we now have a speaker, so that people identify who they are before Noreen brings them in. Is that something you wish to continue with? In
Absolutely,
terms of
yes.
safety? Okay. We've already talked about sports physicals. September 4th is the first student day. Students will be testing the days of 5 through 7 for STAR testing and Gates McGinnity. For new board members, those are tests that students take at the beginning of the year, in the winter, and then again in the fall. For STAR, depending where they scored in the fall, they will be retested in 6 weeks. During that 6 weeks term is when they start in with response to intervention, where they can either get help individually, in a small group, on computer programs, some sort of support. This works not only for students who are struggling, but also for students who are above. We can put some gifted and talented time in there. The 12th, we have some professional development with Wonders in Study Sync, our reading program. And on the 19th, Kurt Jack will be coming to do a refresher training for teachers with their PPEG, which is the new teacher evaluation system.
Okay. Anyone from the school committee have anything?
Yeah, the update about the website. I find it completely unacceptable. It was ordered and by a motion, unanimous motion, in October. In November, specific instructions were given to have the person that was our IT person go to the town office. Specifically, what we wanted on that website was given, was written down, and there were directions, and it was clarified to the board by Ms. Formal that she was going to be contacting our IT guy, and he was going to contact Renee up here. It was going to be modeled after the town website, because the town has an easy website. Renee was more than willing to help them how to do it. It could have been done quick and easy on that with her help. It wasn't any HTML, CSS, anything like that. It was just a WordPress thing to get the information out there, get documents, get factual information to the parents without any other comments, something that people could access. They get the calendars, factual information. That wasn't done. And then it just dragged on, and then we were told that it was going to be a Google Doc that was going to be hosting the site. That's not what we ordered. We ordered WordPress. Nothing was done as we ordered or as we voted on. It was supposed to be done last year. That's completely unacceptable, and now it's going to be going to Nate. That wasn't part of the deal.
I thought that's what you said I thought that's what you guys said in June, and that was the direction you directed
How much
to
is the
go.
website with Nate? Have we got any prices on it?
He's still working on prices. That was one of the things that he said.
Why wasn't it done last year?
When I left here in June, you and Mike led me to believe that Nate was gonna be picking it up because Larry was gone.
What happened about November, December, January, February, March, April?
You heard about it November, December, January, February, March.
And nobody moved on
And
it.
now you're just bringing it up. I mean, I'm
Nope.
doing the best I
I've
can.
brought it up at every single
Well,
meeting. Well, it's not
I
good
don't know
enough.
how to build it. Well, I'm sorry, Stephanie, I'm not good enough.
Well, you
but-
had a direction. Yeah, it wasn't about you, it was about you overseeing your employees to get us this
Really,
website.
we're gonna go down this road, are we? Right out of the blue.
Nope.
You can't
It's
speak
not
to
out of
me,
the blue.
you can't speak to me personally
We
about
have,
this?
we have spoken to you over and
Sorry.
over and again.
Anyone else on the school committee have anything? Superintendent's report.
Yes, I have several items in my report this evening, so I'll apologize in advance for a lengthier than usual report. First, I can provide you with a status on the Boosters Club. I did indeed engage representatives of the Bar Harbor Banking and Trust during the summer months, and the Boosters Club account is now recognized as part of the other building level accounts. We have signatories on that, school employees, specifically Noreen and Tina. The procedure for the Boosters account functions the same as the other accounts that we have at the building level, multiple signatures, deposits, and withdrawal receipts. There is a tracking methodology that we use. So the wishes of the board as they expressed in June have indeed been carried out regarding the Boosters Club. I've already given an update on the school nurse. We're waiting again for the final word on the grant through the health center. Several other items here this evening. It is with regret that I report we received the resignation of Sherry Shute. Sherry has taken a job at Rose and Gaffney Elementary in the Chias. We wish her well as a pre-K teacher there. I also have received resignation from Cindy Davis, bus driver. She has accepted a job at Perry, also a bus driver position there, but we wish Cindy well. On the other side of the coin, I'd like to appoint Dari McConnell as an Ed Tech 3 for the upcoming school year. I also would like to appoint Shelley Tinker as bus driver for the upcoming school year. Good to have Shelley back with us. I also would like to appoint athletic director, get the name now, Bill Ashby, soccer coach, also Bill Ashby, Colby Sawtell, assistant soccer coach, Amber LaValle, cross country. I got all my coaches on the list? Okay. Continuing along in my report for this evening. Photocopier lease. Your lease expired. I'm happy to say that we are receiving new machines and that your monthly payment will be $100 less, actually a little more than $100 less on the new lease.
Question.
Yes.
How many machines?
At Lubec, I believe that's 2, correct?
I believe they replaced one and moved the one that was in the main office over to where the teachers are.
Okay, so it's one new one and rotating out the other
I
one?
think they were doing it last Friday.
What's with the one down in the old principal's office?
It's just stayed vacant.
Because you own that one.
Yes. Is that being serviced under a contract?
I don't believe it's under a contract, that's pay to play. The new one on the lease is under a contract, you have a maintenance contract with the company that uses it.
How many people are accessing that one that's in the old principal's office?
Be your cafeteria, probably a phys ed teacher, because they're a music teacher, they're all on that end of the building.
I'm thinking of how much it costs to service that and how much it costs to supply that versus maybe just an ordinary printer.
We have the people hooking up the new photocopier are in the process of making sure that the one that was being used could be hooked to their laptops. I'm not sure, that was Chad and Nate and those people from the central office.
Okay.
Question.
Yep.
Now, you said that it's gonna be $100 a month less?
That's what I've been told.
Okay, I was just looking at the budget that just came to us yesterday, and I believe there's a $500 a year increase.
Yep, and part of the reason for that is because the leases overlapped. This is the end of August, and we're just now taking delivery, which means that for July and part of this month, your old lease expired. I'll give you a better example. Your new lease, the term, 53 months. So it's not 48 and it's not 60, it's 53, which means that it will expire in the middle of a year, just like the previous year did. Additionally, the previous lease was refinanced, which extended the length of the term, so you were also paying for copiers that were well past their prime. So what you're seeing there is the final payment of the previous year's lease, which staggered the fiscal year, as well as your new cost. But I double-checked that with Chad yesterday, and Lubec's going to do $100 a month less on the new lease.
Could you double check that again and get us some
I can.
documents?
I can, actually.
I find it a little odd that it would be $500 more, but that's something we can discuss in the budget committee meeting, because there's a lot of other questions in here also.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Question, if we can back up into the resignation of personnel and so on like that.
Yeah.
Do we have a process where we have an exit interview of personnel? An exit questionnaire?
Not an official process. I say unofficial because when somebody switches jobs, if they stay within the district, they still have to come to my office to sign the new contract, and inevitably there's some conversation that takes place, but it's not an official process.
Could we put an official thing in there where we could have an exit interview or an exit questionnaire for people who live in the district?
Okay?
Have comment on that? That is something that's extremely common, very helpful for most schools and most companies. That is one of the standard thing. I know we're a terribly small school, but, you know, we've had 3 very qualified employees leave us, and some that have been very long-term and devoted to us. And we pay the same as the other areas. And our talent is exiting. And I, for one, would like to know why.
Well, I can give you some insights on a couple of the ones that we discussed this evening. In the case of Ms. Shute, she improved herself. When I mean that, I say she was an ed tech for us. She's now a teacher at Rose Gaffney. So she is getting the benefits of the teacher's contract, teacher benefits, etc., which is to her financial advantage compared to ed tech status with us.
She was highly qualified.
Yes, she was. But we did not have the teaching vacancy that she was qualified to fill.
We have teachers that aren't qualified.
And that person would not be qualified to fill the slot you're referring to.
Well-
I know what you're saying, and Ms. Shute had a specific certification that she was able to match with a vacancy at Machias. So she took that job as a teacher.
And our bus driver.
In the case of your bus driver, I did speak to her.
So did I.
Well, I don't mind sharing. I don't mind sharing what she told me. I can't speak for what she told you, but for her, she doesn't have to drive around the bay. The previous bus driver lives in Calais, and she's going to be working in Perry. And she mentioned that to me specifically yesterday.
She mentioned a few other things to me.
Well, I can't speak to that.
Okay.
Continuing in my report. Where did I leave off? Here we go. So I got that. Staying with the bus driver theme, a transportation update. I received a message on my desk this past week that not one but 2 of your buses had been condemned. Bus 82 and 83 will no longer pass inspection and will not be stickered. Therefore, they have been taken out of service. As a result, you only have 2 active buses. They're probably beyond half of their life expectancy, but we certainly expect them to continue, fingers crossed, knock on wood, probably 3 to 5 years. Unfortunately, we are functioning at the bare minimum. Yes.
So normally we run with 3 buses and one is just kind of a spare?
Right.
Okay.
So we're down to 2 buses and no spare.
Just to explain about the 2 buses that were condemned, they're 2004s, I believe. And one was in really rough shape mechanically, had a lot of rot on it. The other one we were running as the quote-unquote spare last year, has a lot of rot on the floor and so on like that, and can't be stickered. Even if, we threw money into the other bus that had less rot on it, eventually the state police inspection would probably fail. So, we're hoping to get 1 more year out of one of these buses, but that's not gonna happen.
So, knowing that I was coming to the board meeting tonight, and as luck would have it, Eastport was taking delivery of a bus that they ordered at the last minute. I've obtained some quotes for used buses that are available immediately. We got enough to go around? One more? The first group that's going around to you includes a list with some specifications from W.C. Cressy and Kenny Bunk. The next one, I reached out to my colleague, Superintendent Scott Porter, over in AOS 96, because he had recently purchased a bus from John T. Sear, and he had a list right in his inbox, so he was happy to share the list of used buses that John T. Sear in Old Town has available. So if you'd like to take a moment and kind of familiarize yourself with these numbers, you can see prices vary with age and mileage. I did follow up with the sales manager from Cressy, who indicated that he would be having newer stock arrive in the coming weeks. But if you look at these numbers, my concern as your superintendent is that many of these buses are fairly high mileage. You see one here, 182,000 on the lot right at the moment at Cressy. Mileage is 60 to 100,000 on a 2012 at Sear, over 50,000 on a 2015. Lower mileage buses cost more. Because I've recently taken delivery in Eastport, I can tell you that a brand spanking new 77 passenger with undercoating, 20 extra horsepower, pre-K seat belts in the first few seat rows, that's a $90,000 school bus that Eastport is financing over a 5-year period for an annual payment of somewhere a little over $18,000 annually plus interest.
How many miles does a bus go in a year, on average?
Somewhere in the 15 to 20,000 on average, but you here in Lubec, we do a long haul up to Machias every single day, getting our high school kids to Machias and WA. It could be higher. I say that because lifespan on a bus for replacement, subsidized replacement, the formula that the state uses, a bus has to be 14 years old and over 150,000 miles. I'm seeing buses in service around the district, 185, 200,000 before rust finally catches them. But we are a high mileage district because of the sheer mileage around town plus the commute to Machias.
Mr. Johnson, I have 2 questions, and I guess I'll direct them to Mike and then to you. Earlier, you reported that buses failed inspection.
Yep.
I would like to think that we should be ready to go with our school kids ready to get on a bus and not find ourselves in this predicament that we have buses that have failed inspection. The other thing I'd like everybody to please look at, yes, we do have to transport our students to WA and to Machias. However, nobody is looking at, and I know it's important, I am 100% behind the summer rec program. However, for 8 years, they have used our school bus to take these students almost every day out of town to Bangor, to Machias, wherever. This cannot continue. Those buses are paid for by the taxpayers to transport students for their education. I would like to propose there is a bus that the nursing home has sitting in their parking lot. Maybe the LCOC or the school can approach them and see if we can get that bus. But I don't understand, as some of you have said, why are we waiting to the last minute? School is 4 days away from opening, and we have no idea when we're going to start soccer. We don't have enough buses. If that bus breaks down, what do we do? And I know, Mr. Johnson, you've been very accommodating in helping us to get another bus from another area. That's not the answer. I'd like to see a little bit more preparedness before school starts. Do this. We have all summer. I've seen the buses out at some of the garages here in town. Again, I'm not privy to know when the state does it, but if we have buses that have 180,000 miles and they have to be 14 years old, we're never going to make it. But again, I understand, and it's very important for the students or the children in Lubec to have the summer rec program. I think we need to look at how many miles. I understand they do pay the bus driver and they give some amount of money. I don't think that's enough to help us pay for half of a new school bus. And at some point, it needs to cease, and LCOC needs to purchase their own. And I'm making the recommendation that they look or write for a grant for a bus to get their students wherever they want to go.
Okay, move on.
And that's just,
We have a lot on the agenda, seriously.
Thank you.
Just to finish a thought about the buses, I've got quotes here from John T. Sear and W.C. Cressy. There are other sources where we could potentially get a school bus. You can go through a dealership, but typically a dealership like O'Connor, GMC, and Augusta is a little bit more money because W.C. Cressy and John T. Sear specifically market to schools. I'm looking for some direction from this board to kind of guide me as to what your preference is. Are we going to seek a new bus? Do we want a shorter bus?
My suggestion is, I think we need to stay away from the used stuff, because it could present a problem down the road, especially when you don't get reimbursement on used stuff from the state either.
That's correct.
So it's, anything
That's
you
correct.
gotta buy, it's gonna be new.
So
Okay?
just,
Another suggestion I would have was to go and pursue not one bus, but two, like we have the 2 buses we have now, 121 and 122, that are identical. But in this case, I would like to maybe have the board pursue a shorter bus.
Yeah.
A smaller bus that, number one, has a gasoline engine, cheaper to maintain, cheaper to fuel, and we don't need to be running around with a 77 passenger bus when we only have 15 kids on it. Okay? And it would still pass inspection, it would still be an authorized school bus, it would just be a shorter vehicle. So,
Just so this group understands, right now, we're operating on the bare minimum. I am pleased to say that we were able to, at the 11th hour, find private transportation for 2 kids to an alternative program in Calais, so that need has been met. We have 2 school buses. I've spoken to Anna, who does a great job for us scheduling the buses, and it is possible for us to use 2 buses to do right in-town local, just like we do, just like the parents are used to seeing. First driver back's gonna have to turn around and beat feet to Machias, and I have assurances from their superintendent that if our kids happen to be 10 or 15 minutes late, there'll be no questions asked because of our transportation needs. But we are at the bare minimum, and we need to...
and again, I'm gonna bring up, again, to maybe propose at one of the AOS meetings, is some cooperation. The AOS was formed years ago and was supposed to make things a lot cheaper, a lot easier for the towns involved. And again, we're, all the transport, putting kids from Pembroke and wherever down to Machias every day on our own. I mean, I'd like to see, maybe we can get some cooperation, have several buses, meet at Whiting, put everyone on one bus or 2 buses and do it that way. It might be a lot cheaper and a lot, we're looking at cost sharing and so on like that in the AOS, but that's something we have to bring up in an AOS meeting.
Is that it for me? I think so.
Fuel bid?
Oh, yes, the joint fuel bid. I did contact the town manager about the process of the possibility of entering in a joint fuel bid with the town for the upcoming winter season. I was a little surprised to hear that they had already signed a contract only for the town. And apparently that happened sometime during the month of May. However, we do have a bid out there. I don't know if it's actually made the latest edition, but we do have a bid out there for fuel for the winter season. So we will be able to take advantage of the competitive bidding process with our providers, and we can proceed as we have done it the last couple of years. So,
and again, I'd like to address that with the AOS. Now, I understand that you get certain people up on the northern side of the AOS that may go to Tomorrow and so on like that, but we use RH Foster, we use Eastern, and we might use 1 or 2 other services down this way here. So if Pembroke goes with Eastern and they get a lower price than we get, why can't we piggyback on Pembroke? Or vice versa, if we get a better price from Eastern, let's approach the fuel companies that way there. This way here, they can lock in, our gallonage and Pembroke's gallons and Perry's gallon or whoever. But again, this is something that has to be addressed at the AOS board level. And this has to come from your office to have them look at it. Because the only way we're gonna save money is to kind of help each other out. So, and I remember when I was on the AOS board a few years ago, and there was a lot of pushback on this. And I understand if someone's going to Tomorrow, they don't want to come all the way down to Lubec to deliver fuel oil. But they'll go to Eastport because they're closer, so let's see if we can share some information. So, when is that bid due?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but it is running. It's been submitted along with trash removal, snow plowing, and all the other things that we put out to bid. So Leslie can get an email for that to you if you're curious.
Okay, so on transportation, my recommendation for the board is to look at possibly 2 buses. One is a long bus like we have now, and maybe a short bus. I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
I like the short bus idea a lot.
I seem to remember when we had a small bus before that I was told by a bus driver that there was not fuel savings, mileage savings. Hard to believe, but that's what I was told.
Consider the cost of diesel fuel, and then consider the cost of a diesel repair. Okay, there's so much more that can go wrong with the diesel engine when you put water in it. And we've had some issues in the last couple of years.
Purchase price too.
And injectors are big dollars, so.
You're both right. We have a minibus that we run in Eastport. The miles per gallon, the difference is negligible.
Right.
But Mike's point about maintenance cost on a diesel motor is also correct. Replacing the injectors because there's fuel in the line is a $5,000 repair, and we've been through that in previous years. A gasoline motor, that's an F-350 microbus that's in Eastport's a 35 passenger. V10 gas engine, be maintained locally. The maintenance costs are less. Miles per gallon is negligible. It's about the same. So you're right. And you're right.
Miles per gallon, the cost of fuel per gallon is different.
And purchase price.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to have, some kind of response from the board, which direction we should look into. I really think that we should look at 2 buses, one a short, one a long, because what's gonna happen is that 3 years down the road, we're gonna be probably in the same position with these 122 and 121.
I don't disagree with the idea of 2 buses, but to get 2 buses that are the same age puts us in the same boat 12 years from now. And maybe we could get a brand new one and a used one so that we could have staggered replacement rather than all at once. Good idea.
Well, we can look at used ones kind of make me nervous.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you look at a used one, you have to look at the mileage, and if we're putting 20,000 miles a year onto it, is it worth getting
So
it used?
the avenue for a used one, I've got a used one in operation in Perry, and Perry picked that one up because it was a 3-year lease term. There are places in the state where they lease their buses. Typically, it's an urban area where they're just staying in a city, like Bangor or Portland, because they're not up and down rural roads doing 100 miles a day. They can lease their buses because they're right in one city or one town. So when the lease expires, you can get a gently used 3-year bus with relatively low mileage, something in the 40 or 50,000 range, and still have 120 left in it. And that's what Perry did 2 years ago. But Mike is correct, you can't get state subsidy for the purchase of a used bus. And if we look on our agenda, number 3, it says to consider the purchase of a bus. I am looking for input from this board as to what direction you want me to research. If it is going to be 2 buses, if it is going to be one new, one used, one long, one short, I need a little guidance because I can do a lot of the legwork with sales representatives, and they keep me apprised when they have inventory coming in because around the district, we're a good customer.
Would you explain the subsidy?
Yes. The state has a bus replacement formula, and I've been, Pat Hinckley is the contact at the state who oversees that. I've been in contact with Pat Hinckley. I can get Lubec in line for funding, but there is a priority list. So the state will not subsidize anything less than 14 years old because your bus isn't old enough. And I've got some towns that have had to go through that. So it's a combination, minimum age and mileage. And then it's prorated, literally, there is a list, it's somewhere in somebody's office in Augusta as to who has priority on buses. High mileage, older buses have a greater priority. The budgetary process also is a factor. Towns that are lower down on the list might still get money if a town higher up on the list cuts it from their budget. And there's a form you fill out to apply, and you have to notify the Department of Education if it's removed from your budget. So the money trickles down to people who are lower on the list. Just to finish my story about Perry, they had to go buy a used bus because they had a need. It was condemned, removed from the road, state police red flagged it, no ifs, ands, or buts. A month later, my phone rang and it was my contact in the Department of Education saying, money trickled down to Perry. I said, I bought a used bus. She said, I'm sorry, but you can't use the subsidy, and the money went to the person, whoever was below Perry. And that was kind of sad for Perry, but that's how the formula works.
I have a question. We have 2 buses,
Right,
and we have 2 bus drivers.
yes.
What's our emergency backup plan? Bus driver gets sick, a bus breaks down.
Yep.
We gotta have something in place here.
I have it on fairly good authority we could find a substitute driver in case of an emergency.
I need something better than fairly good. Middle of winter, we gotta do something here.
Well,
This is gonna bite us in the butt if
Yep.
all of a sudden,
And-
and our kids are gonna be let down.
And we're running the ad for a bus driver.
But what about the bus itself? What's our backup plan?
Can I
Do
make
we
a
have-
suggestion? The janitors in the past, from what I heard, always had a bus driver's license to be a backup. Is that something that could be implemented? And have the janitors get
We've
their
run an
bus
ad
driver's license?
consistently for the last 6 months.
Okay. Is this a suggestion?
Anyone here want to be a janitor and a bus driver? Okay, so,
Why not the janitor we have right now?
Just for a backup, if somebody was sick, just a backup.
so do we have another vehicle that we can actually put our hands on in a short time?
I've got two options. AOS 96 says they've got a spare one. It's either in East Machias or Machias Port. Callis uses First Student. Their superintendent and I have spoken in the past, and he would be willing to pull a string to get First Student to send us one. One is 50 miles away, one's 25. So I don't know how quick we could make it happen, but if our kids were in an emergency, I could make it happen.
So we have that plan ready so that the bus doesn't start at 5 in the morning on a cold day. Do we have these plans?
I'm not saying that there isn't a potential for something to be inconvenient. If the bus doesn't start at 5:30 and we can't get it out of the driveway, I'm gonna have Tina and Anna on the phone calling parents saying, please keep your kid at home, and if we miss a child, they're gonna have to wait at the school. But I'm not saying that we couldn't be in that situation. That is a possibility.
Then we need to make this a huge priority.
Does the board have a preference to direct my research? One bus, two bus, long bus, short bus? I sound like Dr. Seuss.
Can you research those and give us all the options?
Okay, I can do that.
But
So,
decisions have to be made quickly.
Yes.
Yes.
So you would let us know by email and we would do an email vote? Or would that go?
email votes really don't pass public scrutiny, and that's not someplace we need
This
to
is
go.
something we'd have to bring to another board meeting, but, you know, you can do the research and find out what's out there, find out what's available.
Right.
And find out how soon we can get our hands on it.
So under number 3, you can direct me to research all options, and I will. And to answer your question, if there was an emergency, I would send this board an email saying, I had to do that because we had a bus breakdown in Fredericton on a field trip last year, and I had to kick something out saying, our kids are stranded, they're safe, but we're sending the bus from Charlotte, and that was interesting, but if there's an emergency, I obviously will communicate quickly via email to this board to keep you apprised of A, what's going on and what I'm doing about it. But email votes, we want to stay away from that.
Can we get on the list like tomorrow? Because if there's a priority list and it takes time to go through that process,
Right.
maybe those two things could happen at the same time. We know we're gonna need at least one bus.
And he's already contacted the state and actually started that process.
Okay.
But I'm thinking, you know, it's not something that's gonna happen like in the next
No,
week or so.
and the reason for that is because it's a competitive process with the state, so they have to treat all school districts equally. So I've got the word out to Pat Hinckley, and what I am waiting for from her is, here's the date when the process starts. It's gonna be some date, because she can't let us get an early request in, because it's not fair to any other school department in the state that might have a need. So it is a competitive process. There is a formula that treats school districts equally, but I'm after her. So so we can put number 3 aside, is there a motion to direct me to research a variety of options?
Second.
All in favor? Yes. Okay, so we don't have any old business. In the new business, we've moved things around. And the next one up on new business is to consider the nomination of William Ashby, Health Physical Education Teacher Probationary, one for 2018, 2019.
I make a motion that we nominate William Ashby as health physical education teacher.
Any questions? Any comments? Any discussion?
I think he is a great find. I've checked out his background, watched numerous videos, and he has some pedigree to him. He has a lot of experience and he's a local. I really like that. He's coming home. He went out, he made a name for himself, he got all the experience and he's bringing it back home. I admire him for that.
Okay, the motion to nominate William Ashby, health physical education teacher, probationary 1 for 2018-2019 school year. All in favor? There it is. Number 4, to consider a revision or adoption of the 2018-2019 Lubec school budget. Hold on your hat. Number 1, we have to make these a little bit larger, please.
And that has been a request, that's the 6th time we've made that request. 6 times.
I haven't got enough copies for everybody. People can
Mrs.
share.
Johnson,
can
could
share
the
one
budget
with her.
committee have one, please?
Is there a representative of the budget committee?
There's 2 in here.
Two of them.
Thank you, John.
I don't know if I can see it.
So quickly before, I'll wait a minute to make sure folks out there have a copy. Okay. So an immediate question, what has changed since we last convened in June? If you look right on the front page in the bottom left-hand column, you can see some changes that have been made since we last met. At the June meeting, the board directed me to remove a grant writer position that was present in the budget. That has been removed. I asked Tina to revisit course reimbursement lines in the budget and make some reductions. She has done that. This current version of the budget does have a boiler payment in there for a proposed boiler project. However, if we want to revisit that this evening, you can direct me to take it out. Knowing that we have a need for a school bus, there is indeed a bus payment embedded in your budget. I also asked the special education director to revisit her lines, and she reduced those a significant amount. If we look on page 1, the budget in its current form, if we look at third column down where it says total local revenue, you see that there is no change in total local revenue. What that means is if this budget were implemented in its current form, there would be no increase to taxation. If we look at the very bottom, because this question comes up frequently in other towns, the total size of the budget has indeed increased by the number that you see there, $202,000. So the question is, how can you have flat taxation if the budget has increased by $202,000? The answer is you have more revenue coming in. You have $100,000 in additional subsidy, and we're using $113,854 of the available balance forward to bring down taxation.
So we're passing the buck to next year.
No.
So next year, we won't be, if we do the exact same numbers, we won't have that excess that we had last year. So next year, people are gonna wonder why are they 134,000 more? Well, really, this year, we're just sort of inching in that extra and saying, oh, there really is no increase. When actually, there is an increase.
No.
Yeah,
There's no increase to taxation.
not to taxation.
Right.
Yeah, tricky wording.
Well, that's the fact. The other thing that I would say is, the point that is omitted from your analysis is that there will be another audit. The number that you see here, $113,000 in balance forward, that's based on the available funds as stated in the FY17 audit. FY18 closed on June 30th, and there will be an FY18 audit. We finished in the black, so indeed there will be more money going into the balance forward that your auditor will calculate. So a year from now, when we do the budget process again, there will still be money in the balance forward because we'll have another audit cycle. If we want to look quickly on the back page, you can see a summary. You can see what areas went up, what areas went down on page 86. You can see regular instruction. This is the cost center that includes tuition, teacher salaries, insurance benefits, and so on. You can see special education saw an increase of 72,000. Transportation and buses went up 17,000, but that's where the bus payment is built in. Facilities maintenance went up 16,000. That's also where the projected payment for the boiler project is built in. So this budget can still take a variety of forms. I am looking to my board to suggest or make known what their preference might be.
I'd like to get together with the budget committee probably sometime in the next week or so,
We can do that.
and we can do a workshop. So it's not a meeting, it's not a school board meeting, it will be a budget workshop. Any ideas, Wanda, or
The only days that I wouldn't be available is on Fridays. And I think Sonia's available every day. During the day.
Friday work out well?
How about you two?
You're not available Fridays. Mondays or Tuesdays are usually great for me.
I'm not available during the day, work.
I work
Excuse
until
me?
5.
Yeah, we have to be in the meeting.
Could we do this in the evening sometime?
That's the other thing. Can I ask real quick, Mark, how did we go from 17 pages down to 8? Am I missing something?
I think what we refer to is all like the stipend stuff, and then the other funds that are there and stuff, the after-school fund, and then the school sports equipment fund and stuff like that, that's not here.
The
That'll
font
be on-
keeps changing also.
Pardon me?
The font keeps changing.
Yeah, well,
So when you
we
go
can make it
from
look
12 or 14 font, like the town uses a nice 13, 14 point font. When you go down to an 8, I mean, of course the budget looks much smaller.
good. So can we agree on some kind of a date, some kind of a day and time?
Any day, any evening that you guys are, I'm always available.
Next week,
Yeah, sooner the better.
Wednesday would be good.
Wednesday, next Wednesday, I have a board meeting in Perry.
What day you have available other than that? What time can we start meeting?
The 4th, I'm in Ellsworth. The 7th, I'm in Augusta. The 5th, I'm in Perry. The 6th, something later in the afternoon would be better for me. 3 or 3:30?
And we have 2 board members that can't do days.
Marion.
No, I work until 5 every day, Monday through Friday.
What time, Melissa?
I have more flexibility than that, but I work an 8-hour day.
Your availability?
I'm not available Thursdays evenings.
So that's when the board meeting's
I
on.
understand.
We have next week, the 6th.
I could do the 6th in the late afternoon.
Can I ask
Looking
a
at the-
question?
Sure.
Because I don't understand. The school is starting Tuesday, the 4th.
Right.
This is the fifth revised budget
Right.
going back to March.
Yep.
And what you're suggesting is that we have a workshop. Is that?
Suggestion is having a workshop with the town's budget committee to have additional eyes looking on things where we can move things around, maybe cut some more things, question why we're seeing, miscellaneous things in several accounts, and why we're seeing, technology and then technology-related items in another account, and why they're together, and why we're seeing everything move around.
And we're doing this after school starts rather than in June and July and August. I'm
But-
curious, it's my first meeting.
Budget,
It doesn't make
budget
sense.
preparation starts in my office in March.
Yeah.
Because we are an SAD, we're required to have 3 budget workshops, which the budget committee attended. We piggyback those workshops with board meetings. April, May, and June, 3 school board meetings in a row. We took up the budget. That was preceded by a meeting with the budget committee each time. At the June meeting, the board did not approve the budget. We did not meet in July, and here we are in August.
Well, and that's,
I would,
and it's the end of August.
I would like to say one thing though, in July, Wanda and I and Barb were set to meet, and we were gonna, we were the ones that had some really major concerns in there. We were gonna discuss some things on how we could, get things doing. And, yeah, we were set to meet at 2 o'clock, and at 11 o'clock, Wanda had a heart attack. And so, and we had, yeah, so that we really had all intentions of doing this. But then also, one thing that sort of threw us is that, we had a little issue with, some misappropriated money and funds and things that were, things weren't, that we found in June that weren't kosher.
Mike,
And
can
we
I
had to
say
take a
one
look.
thing?
Go ahead.
Just, we had, at that time, we had 17 pages on our budget, and as of that last meeting we had, we'd only completed 4 pages.
Yes.
Yes, I had exactly where we stopped. We had more than half the budget that the budget committee hadn't, we'd been going 3 and 4 hours. And we had not gotten through the budget because we had a lot of questions about accountability and line items that I know that would like to be pushed through, but I mean, the buck stops here. We're gonna actually figure this out. I'm not gonna just shove
It's the
something
rule.
through.
I would like to point out that 3 members of the board meeting without public notice is an illegal meeting.
It wasn't 3 school board members, sir. It was 2 school board members and a member of the budget committee.
Okay.
Yep.
I stand correct, yeah.
Yep.
Yes,
Ray, could I shed a little bit of light on what Sinead is asking? Every time we got a new budget, the figures changed. So even what we had done had new figures in it. If you keep changing a budget, what you think you set up is not actually there. The other thing I'd like to recommend to every board member there, and to the 2 that are still remaining on there, you've heard me say this, each of you need to be involved with the superintendent and the principal in setting this budget up and know that budget inside out and upside down. So that when the townspeople, the town's budget committee meets with you and they ask their questions, you are not saying, well, what is this? Because that's what we ran into. We had the board not knowing what these figures were, and they were taking the hour or 2 hours that we had for the town's budget committee to ask questions. They were asking questions because they had not seen it. That's not acceptable. You need to be involved.
that's
to
why we need
understand
some more
this.
workshops to go over this.
I beg your pardon.
That's why we need more workshops.
I know, Mike, I
We
just
need to
wanted to
start the
share that
process
with
sooner.
the new board members because you have 3 new ones. I just wanted to make them aware. Thank you.
It's the 10 minutes.
Just so the group understands. The board has to do its business in public. So, and the budget is probably the most important piece of business that you do over the course of the year. So, I have to be very careful in what I give to you in advance of meetings for that requirement. John kind of alluded to it with his question, and what Mike has described is allowable because there was only 2 board members. But I think it should be said that the board has to do its business in public, just as we are this evening.
Can I just, Mike, I'm sorry, but we have 3 different year, board members here. I can't remember, Stephanie, when you were here, but we used to, years ago, we would have 2 members from our school board, people from the budget committee, and we'd start the process together. We wouldn't do it the way that I've noted we've done it these last 2 years. We all start that process together. Is that how you people did it, Stephanie, when you were on the board?
Generally, the superintendent would put together the first draft.
Yeah.
And
What I-
then
what I
bring
need to
that
do,
to the group you described.
Yeah.
And then it would flow from there. But
What I really need to do now,
he usually starts it based on figures from last year, and what he knows needs to be in it and things like that. It
What I
is-
need to get, what I need,
unfortunately, it's a fluid document.
what I need to get to now is I need to get to a date where the budget committee can meet at the school. Fifth, sixth, or seventh? Do you have an option on that? Do you have availability on that?
If it's in the, I can do the 5th if it's in the afternoon, because I have to be in Perry at 6. Can't do the 7th at all because I'm in Augusta.
And the
Jane
sixth?
can't do the sixth. Jane said she can't do
Yeah,
the
I can't do
sixth.
the 6th.
But are you gonna have a full board, or are you just gonna have 2 people and a budget?
Well, I mean, we don't necessarily have to have a full board, but we need to
That's
have
true.
a couple of board members to have eyes on it, so.
If 2 board members want to meet with 2 members of the budget committee, generate some questions, what are your concerns, email them to me. I think things could potentially proceed based on the fact that you're looking at a public document. I just gave you the latest version from my office right here. This is now in the public domain, everybody out here has it. Conceivably, if 2 members of this board wanted to spend some time with it, they can ask me questions because 2 board members can't take any action. You need a quorum. So conceivably, I don't believe you'd be in violation of anything, and there is precedent for this because what this board can do is essentially create a subcommittee and designate that subcommittee to either send questions to me or report back to the full board. I'd be fine with that because 2 of you don't have the authority to take action, takes a quorum. Does that sound like a potential course of action for everybody?
That would work.
What,
Right now.
are the members of the public comfortable with that? Because that's a little different than the way you've been doing business.
Well, you're still gonna have 13 pages to review, Mr. Johnson. There's 13
Yeah.
pages we have to review. So we can't, just do that like that.
I'm not saying that it needs to be done quickly or any length of time. I would just like it to be done within the established procedure allowed by the law. So I don't care how long it takes myself.
You had your hand up.
Well, I just wonder how unusual this circumstance is where there's 3 brand-new board members being presented with a budget that we're seeing for the very first time. Personally,
We're not acting on this
in-
tonight, I can tell you that right
well,
now.
in order for me to vote on a budget, I want to understand it, which
Yeah.
takes a whole lot of time. I then would support the 2 longer-term board members being on that small committee, because this would take months of going through, and for me to understand what's going on. I mean, I don't even know how many buses.
Three new board members all at once is a little unusual. And I actually brought some manuals for our new board members here this evening, so don't run. I better distribute those while I remember them. Just if you're curious, around the district, I've got 6 new board members, so change on the board really isn't unusual. 3 new members in the same year, yeah, that's somewhat unusual, but if this board, and particularly the new members, want to take a little more time to familiarize yourself with the document, I'm fine with that.
Well, just speaking for myself, I did go through the document and through the old documents. Because of the timing, I would move to appoint a subcommittee of 2 board members to meet with the town budget committee and give a written report back to the full board, so we have some idea what's going on.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to appoint a subcommittee to take care of this matter. appointing
Would you
2
like
board
to be
members.
on that, Janine?
No?
Okay,
Do I have a second on that motion?
second.
All in favor? Okay, all opposed? All abstaining.
I'm abstaining.
Okay, who would you like to appoint on that subcommittee?
I move Richard Dean, Mike, and Stephanie.
Second.
All in favor?
I didn't hear who you appointed.
Mike and Stephanie.
Thank you.
Okay,
Well, I have a question then. Instead of, well, one of the reasons I haven't emailed my questions, because I have 268 so far on my list, and it'll probably take you several days to try to write those back. Verbally, it could be handled much quicker. And to write up a report to each one of you, is it possible maybe that we could, when we get together, that we set it up so that it's videotaped? I can launch it on YouTube and you guys can see exactly what we were talking about? Would you want to do that? I mean, it might be more meaningful than we did this and then we did this. And you can actually see, I don't know.
So how many people would be participating remotely?
I can videotape it.
It wouldn't be
Okay,
live.
so it wouldn't be live, okay,
No.
okay, no, okay.
No,
Okay.
I could just videotape it, launch it on YouTube, give them the code, and they could watch at their leisure.
Mike, it is a general public road.
Can,
It's not private.
Budget Committee do something on the 7th?
After 5?
Yep.
Yes.
Actually, can you meet anytime earlier in the week? During the evening? Or during the day?
During the day, it's actually easier.
About any day in the evening.
And I can do,
Can you meet during the day, Wanda?
I can, but Sonia in the evening, I think there are 2 days she can.
Thursday she can know, I know that.
What, are daytimes
Yeah.
better for people?
I don't know, pick one. Day or evening?
Either one for me. I mean, not Fridays.
I prefer daytime if possible.
Late afternoon works.
Can you do Friday day? That's what I'm asking.
No, Friday day I won't.
Okay. Wednesday or Thursday day? Okay, Thursday day, that work out better? Okay.
What's the game done first?
2 o'clock in the
6.
afternoon?
Okay.
2 o'clock?
Okay. Where? Here?
2?
Yeah, can we check the town calendar real quick? See what they have going on? We have a.
If somebody has an iPad,
Oops.
it's on the webpage and call.
Somebody have an iPad? I can look it up on my phone too. I can look that up while we continue.
Yeah, okay, that's
Okay, we'll put it tentatively 2 o'clock until I can find out, because I can't get online this.
Okay, so we're on table 4 and table 5.
Table 4, table 5. Okay, consider high school furnishings and equipment disposal. Number 1, I would like to make a motion to the board to have the board order that the equipment that is in that particular room, there's actually 2 rooms, I believe, if we could have that moved from the high school area down to the, I guess, what is it called, the industrial axe garage area? Get it out of that building.
Just remember that Sheldon needs to have the tractor and the mower, the tractor and the mower for plowing,
Yes,
stuff melting.
but if we can have it put in a corner somewhere, get it out of that building.
What about if it won't all fit? The classroom's already full. Pick the best stuff,
We'll find a place to fit it right now, and then we have to find some way to dispose of it, because it is town property.
okay.
So I can't just arbitrarily say, just throw it out, just pick the best and throw it out, it's not my property. So,
I don't know if anybody'd be interested in this, but when the high school closed, there was a specific direction that was supposed to be taken on every single detail of the school closing, of how things should be disposed of dates things should be disposed of. And none of us ever knew about it. The only reason we knew about it is because we had Barb right here that was on the board, that they had a committee for closing the school that did a tremendous amount of work, and it was very itemized. Barb saved every single detail, every shred, every little post-it, and everything was supposed to be done by 2011. There was not supposed to be anything in there. So I don't know why this is coming up here in 2018. It's a little incredible, I thought. Those were the things. These came directly from Barb. So we have a lot of items still. There's a list of the dates when everything was supposed to be done. I don't know where the ball was dropped on this, but we have a bunch of junk sitting there for the last 8 years that should have been taken care of. And now we have to deal with it at this point.
Stephanie, I do know that Ms. Normal did allow the teachers, when she came back in September, to go down to that end and take out what they wanted. I am not accusing, nor making the implication that the teachers made a mess, but I took the walk through that school, and a lot of stuff was just dumped on the floor. That's not appropriate. I don't know, I'm not saying Ms. Normal didn't appoint someone, didn't ask someone, but someone fell down. Moving on, the LCOC wants to get that stuff out of there.
Yep.
And I think the best thing that can happen is that, as Matt just said, let's get everything out of there, get it down in the IA shop, and move forward. But I just wanted other people on the board to know that there was an action plan set in place.
That's what I copied here. Yep, and there was specific things, and it was, you know, there was a systematic thing, there was a sale. We know that somewhere in our accounts, there's an account called the High School Sale Fund that has $400 and some in it. I saw a couple of people's names on some of the sale items. Doesn't look like it was, like many came to it. But at this point, it's been going on way too long. We just need to get this mess cleaned up and move forward.
I recently saw somebody on Facebook trying to sell stuff in the old high school land.
Yeah, that was what really started this whole movement.
Yeah,
Okay.
So,
yeah, that was a private. The sale of the things were still owned by the school. That was what started it. We didn't even know this stuff. It's a mess.
Well,
And
I'd like
procedures
to
weren't followed.
have someone put something on the floor here as far as, you know, getting this stuff taken care of. And,
There is a motion on the floor to move it, items to the IA garage. Is there a second?
Who would move it?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm confused. Yeah, he made the motion, who you? It has been, yeah.
Different kind of movement.
Robert's rules, not often I can chuckle at Robert's rules, but anyway. It has been suggested that perhaps we could solicit and prevail upon our good friends at the Volunteer Fire Department to lend a hand or a pickup truck, as the case may be.
and I would actually dig in and help move this stuff and, you know, get this stuff and put it on a pickup truck and cart it around the backside of the building and, you know, help Sheldon and whoever move this stuff and get this out of that building so we
Once it
can
gets
actually.
moved from there, though, what's going to happen with it from
Well,
there?
that's what we have to decide, because it's, number one, it's not up for debate, it's public property.
Right.
Okay, so we have to dispose of it in the right way, whether it's gonna be a sale, or come and get a free desk, or do something with it, okay? And once we've gone down that road, whatever we have left, then we can turn around and say, okay, look, we've tried, we've offered this out to the public, we've offered it out for sale, or donation, or whatever, then dispose of it and get rid of it the proper way. So it's not in the building anymore. I mean, there's some stuff there that's like, you know, glass beakers, chemical beakers and stuff, you know, for chemical class and stuff, you know, stuff that's fragile, breakable. We did get rid of, I'd say, probably about 90% of the books.
100% of the books.
Well, 100% of the books are gone, okay. So, the books were outdated and so on like that, and those went where they needed to go. Recycling or to the dumpster somewhere.
So the motion is to have someone help move the stuff to the IA garage?
No, the motion is to actually move it, okay? And what my intention on the motion was to, is to direct, school personnel, whether it be IEA Sheldon or whoever, to move it, and I am volunteering my help to help that happen. And maybe we can, I mean, at one time, did the guys from the town yard come up here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and helped out or whatever, and, I mean, if we can,
The monk group did it.
it probably would take probably a few hours to do it, so. But it needs to move out of that area. Yes.
Couple of things. Since the last meeting, we have consolidated that into pretty much one small classroom. Once all the books were gone, that took care of a lot of it. So it probably might, with a good group, might only take an hour or two, with the exception of some of the old, bigger chemistry things. Two, can we put a timeline, a deadline on that for that to get done? Because this has been.
What time, what would you like as a deadline?
Yesterday. Well, a month, let's give it, can we give it 2 weeks to a month? That would be great. I mean, we've been going on since June with this, and as Stephanie said, it's been going on since 2011. And I'm not sure if Barbara gave her documents. We discussed it at the last meeting. There was a public opportunity to bid on several of those things, so. Well, that has been done. I'm not done. And two, you do follow Robert's Rules of Order, correct? So there needs to be a motion and a second before discussion on it.
And if you're gonna put a timeline on it, you're gonna revise your motion and then we'll get a second. That's a question.
Okay, then we'll revise the motion then. The motion is to have that material moved by school personnel, i.e. the custodian, and I will help myself, and we'll put a timeline on that within the next 2 weeks.
Second.
Second on that?
I just second that.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
One of the things in there that it really stressed in, that the previous board actions had made on the roles of that was that once, everything was sold or put up for, it was supposed to be for sale, specifically directions on how to be put up for sale. It was supposed to be open free to Lubec residents. And there was supposed to be advertising and come get it. If you're a Lubec resident, you help pay for this property, come get what you want. Offer it to the public first. Is that something that we can do
What I'd like to do
before
is
or after?
get the motion taken care of, and then we can discuss how we're gonna dispose of it afterwards, because I need to get out of that high school name. So,
Okay, I just wondered if we were gonna just have the sale before, come get it, so that we wouldn't have to move so much? Or are we gonna move
no,
everything and then say
the
come
problem
and
with
get it?
that is that because that's in LCOC's domain right now,
Okay.
so.
How would they like to proceed?
I would like to settle the motion first. All in favor? Okay, so we can move that without 2 weeks.
Can we just ask that that be coordinated with LCOC?
Excuse me?
Can we just ask that that move be coordinated with the staff at LCOC?
Yep.
So it's not done on Food Pantry Day or what
Yep.
have you?
So, could we get that done there, as far as, kind of make a date with that? And let me know so I can be around and maybe get a couple of guys to help out. So, and then the next thing, once we get it downstairs, yes,
So, I'm Nancy Harrison, the new director of the LCOC. So I spent yesterday morning moving all that stuff, because it literally was a room you couldn't open the door and walk in because there were books and glass and garbage along with the desks and all that stuff thrown in the room. So we took a few hours and organized. I would say that half of what is in that room is garbage. Like there are broken shelves, there are desks with pieces missing, there are stuff that shouldn't be moved, it should be disposed of. And then there are a lot of good stuff. And I can't speak for the LCOC yet because I haven't spoke to my board, but I don't think we'd be opposed to opening it up, if people wanted to come get desks versus it being moved twice. Like, we're all about,
Efficiency.
and having moved it all, there's like a lot of children's desks. There's a lot of stuff in there, and then some of the stuff I moved. I actually learned in conversation with Elodie that it was actually owned by the LCOC. It was some kind of old floor mat play game that was actually part of the outreach center. So that room has a lot of garbage. Like, I'm not an estimator of a dumpster, but we've had a house in town for 3 years and we've moved a lot of dumpsters worth of stuff, and it's a lot of garbage that, rather than seeing you put it on a truck and move it around the back, it should get moved into a dumpster. That's
Well, now what to do with this stuff? Any ideas?
Offer it to the public, but it should be advertised, it should be put, I think one of the ideas I saw in that big packet that Barb gave me was to advertise it on the town site, or on the sign out front, that there's a free day out there, starting at this time, first come, first serve, take what you want. And I think a date should be set on that. That'd be nice, if we could get that and be really
Something less than
efficient.
2 weeks.
That'd be nice.
Is this something we could set up with you as far as a date, a specific day?
I'd be thrilled to work on that with.
And we could
folks
arrange
get
to
it
have
on.
it advertised and actually have the public come in there on a specific date.
Absolutely.
Pick and choose what they
I'm
want.
sure that is something that could be arranged, because a lot of it, you don't necessarily want the public going in there and picking and choosing, because a lot of it's garbage, and a lot of it's broken, and some of it's not really safe, so I think I would rather we move out the stuff that's safe to give people the ability to come pick it out, and then hopefully you guys pay for a dumpster and we throw the rest away. That would be, out of that room full, and you're welcome to come see anytime. We did organize pretty well. There's still a lot of books, a lot of binders of old science curriculum, probably maybe 100 of them. I don't think I'm exaggerating, because we picked a lot of them up off the ground. Dump truck load of books is the pickup truck of books. That's garbage. And then a lot of broken stuff that it'd be really hard to estimate how much, but some big stuff that is not repairable. And there absolutely are some good desks, some good tables and chairs that, but also a lot of the chairs are not workable anymore. They would be garbage.
So while moving this, we want to cull through it and see what's trash, what's not trash.
One thing might could be after-school program, and Nancy said the adult ed, could they have an option on anything?
I would just add one more thing, because we did meet with the new Axioms with providing the adult ed in Lubec. The catalyst starting some of this was to use that old lab for their first classes. They're starting next Wednesday, although enrollment's low. But in conversation, I'm wondering if after we cleaned out the stuff, it's almost like we could almost make a classroom versus using the old lab without good chairs with some.
Would an adult seeking adult education be comfortable in a child's desk?
Well, they're high school desks.
High school size.
And there are some independent, just tables and chairs that slid up that would work for adult. That would work inappropriately for adult education. But there's a lot of garbage in that room. I'll tell you that too. There is a lot of stuff that should be thrown away.
Okay, now, we voted on a motion, we'll move the stuff out within the next 2 weeks, and then we'll cull through it and go from there.
Works for me.
So, what is it you want shown to the,
Coordinated date, so he has time
with
to.
LCOC?
Yep, between me, LCOC, and whatever, and we can get some help in there to move this stuff out. Probably won't take more than an hour or two.
And we can coordinate with Renee. Put it on the sign, get the word out.
Yep.
Coordinated date with you and LCOC?
Yeah. I'll get your contact information later
Sure
on.
thing.
Okay, number 7, to consider a request from the Lions Club school flag. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Can I just go back, because we finally got the calendar up for the town, on that budget date? We finally pulled this up, I did. And was it the 6th that you wanted me? At 5 o'clock, there's a board meeting in here. Yeah.
On the afternoon.
2 in the afternoon here? Okay, there's no, that should be clear then. 5
That works out
o'clock,
well?
5 o'clock is safe harbor
Okay.
in here. Okay, that's it.
Okay, requesting the Lions Club / school flag.
So I was approached by the Lions Club to see if they could make copies of the school flag to sell, and their profit would go towards scholarships for high school children in this area. I don't know if there's any copyright thing and rural stuff, and it just went out through the door.
I think you
So-
should,
I don't know, so that's why it's here.
I think one of the people you might need to ask is Julie Keane, because she put it together and helped design it, so she would know if they copied it.
Well, I think I have to bring it to my board first to
Well, I'm
see if
just
they
saying, you
want
said,
me
I
to
don't
proceed.
know who, so
Yeah,
I'm
that's the
just
first
telling you.
question I have, is there a copyright?
And I don't know, that's why I called Kenny and he said, bring it here.
Okay, we first have to find out if there's copyright on it before we can vote on it, so.
And who owns?
Anyone that owns one of them should have, if it
Excuse
has
me?
a copyright at the bottom, it's copyrighted. If they didn't put the C, it's not copyrighted.
We own it, we're
Yeah,
okay.
If I can add a couple things for discussion, it is not unusual for student artwork to be, auctioned for a fundraiser within the school. If this was contained within the school, we wouldn't be talking about it because there are things that are in place. What makes it a little different is that you have an organization outside of the school umbrella that is going to be selling them. I can tell you what the rule is for a strictly school-based operation. If it was strictly school-based, it's a simple question of getting permission from the parent because the child is a minor. It becomes a little more complex in this case when you have an outside agency that could potentially make profit. So that adds a layer of complexity to this particular action. But if we have some people that we can talk to, I'm fine with that.
Can I ask a question? What is the school flag? Is that the flag that was put together by Emma Page a number of
Yes.
years ago? That was designated the town flag by the select board and seconded by the state legislature.
Okay.
So that's actually a town flag.
So then this organization needs to talk to the town.
That's right. What it sounds like.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, you just went through all this with the booster, it's the same deal, isn't it, basically?
And that was another reason why I wanted to put this before the board. I was proceeding with caution and knowing the concerns that were raised around the Boosters organization because if it was going to be, a school-based design, you would want to have a pretty good understanding of how the money was going to flow. The point that John makes, if it's already a town flag, then it could be, I strongly suspect it's something that's outside of our scope.
So I need to contact the town. Okay. Number 8, to consider establishing breakfast and lunch prices. What,
Can I get a motion to just say contact the town for the minutes?
motion on the floor to do that? All in favor?
Thank you.
Okay. To consider establishing breakfast and lunch prices for 2018-2019, recommendations are as follows. Student breakfast and student lunch would be at no charge, correct?
Correct.
Adult breakfast would be at $2.80, and adult lunch would be at $6.25. We have a motion on this. And actually, Sarah McConnell, I guess, couldn't be here tonight, but she's the person that's really right behind this whole program, so it worked out well last year.
Is this different than in the past?
Last year, we went into this program, we were providing free breakfast and lunch for all students. Okay, and it's a program through Sarah McConnell had, kind of put in place here. And it worked out well last year, so. And there was no, I forgot my lunch today, and there was no sending, notes home to get, $1.55 or something like that, a week later. So,
Who writes the grants for this?
Something crazy from
Sarah's organization.
I don't know what her organization is now, they've changed their name, so.
Do they pay them? Or do they just do it for the AOS or all the schools or?
They do not do it for the AOS. I believe,
Is it a charity program?
you're the only one that does it. I'm pretty this year.
How do we reimburse the people that are making this huge effort to get us this free lunch? Or is it a charitable organization? I'm not sure.
Yes.
It's a
Is
grant
it?
program from the federal government.
Yep.
Sarah
But who
made a
applies for it?
presentation. I beg your pardon?
Who's our grant writer? Who's doing all the work to get us the money?
That WHCA did it and presented it to us.
Oh, they
We
did.
Go to them.
Okay.
Sarah made a presentation to the school board.
I move we accept the recommendations for breakfast and lunch for students and adults.
Second on that?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? And all opposed? Abstain?
Can I see the vote again? Oh, thank you, okay.
Okay, discussion on disciplinary procedures for special needs students. And this would involve any student that has an IEP in place.
Yes.
You have something to pass out on that?
Yes, I do. So, we had a situation last year that was ongoing and came to a head at the last school board meeting, and I was not very comfortable with the answers that were received. I spent a considerable amount of time this summer consulting with academic scholars on the subject of disciplining students with IEPs. And there you go. This is one of the biggest things that they recommended. It was an article about how to discipline students with disabilities by the National Association of School Psychologists, because it came to us of the chain of command. The parents had felt that the chain of command had failed them and had come all the way to the school board. And what I questioned was, we're the school board. We're not specialists in overseeing and deciding and redeciding, especially a child with special needs.
Okay, let me interject one thing before
Yeah.
we go any further. One of the things I want to caution the school board on right now is that we're not going to discuss any personal cases, any particular case, any one child at all, okay? So we're just talking in general terms here on what the recommendations should be.
And what I wanted to bring to the attention was that, and I am very familiar with this, I have a special needs child myself, but I have really educated myself previously to these situations. I'm very familiar with the federal law on these. And the chain of command, actually, these students have a different chain of command. And I would like a little better notification to the parents that the chain of command isn't as a normal student, where it goes to the principal and the superintendent and the board. The chain of command is higher. It is federal. And the chain of command would start with their IEP team. Who knows that child best? Who can suggest discipline with that child so that it doesn't go through the people that do not know the child, so that we don't, so that we handle the situation with more respect, that we aren't reckless with the child's given needs, that we aren't all having to come up to date with the child's needs, because it's really none of our business. That's personal with their IEP team, with their professionals. And one of the things here is in the back that I highlighted, there were some examples in here, and it was that all the disabilities require an effective individualized intervention plan document in which the child's IEP, such as a plan, if such plan did not exist and a disciplinary action were taken resulting in a suspension, expulsion, an arbitrary change in placement, or illegal removal from FAPE, which is the federal programs, it would be a violation of the child's civil rights. And I am concerned that I think we need to do better with communicating with the IEP team. I think we need better communication with the parents. I think the parents should have a right, if their child is disciplined, to have the IEP handle it, not come to the school board where people don't know specialized disabilities and try to get up to date on that. They should have their chain of command go through the IEP. And I know you're just staring at me.
I'm
And
waiting-
I'm very
I'm
strong,
waiting-
I feel
I'm-
very
I'm-
strongly about this, and I feel very.
I'm waiting for your presentations, go ahead.
Yeah, you waiting?
I'm waiting.
It's all right here. And we're not gonna mention any specific children, but I would like to give parents the opportunity to go through the IEP system. If they feel that they've been unfairly handled, that the chain of command shouldn't come to the school board. Chain of command should be the IEP team, who has the option to override that discipline and to expunge a record if it was inappropriately put in place. And I would like to see that happen.
Okay.
And I don't believe this is currently happening.
Point of clarification.
Yes.
An IUP team meeting can be called at any time.
Yes,
Parent-
I understand.
Parent can call a special ed director, set up a meeting. That's how it works. Well established in state law, verified in every case of a suspension, expulsion, and I've been involved in both, by the way. An IEP team has to make a manifestation of disability hearing after 10 days. In those first 10 days, a student with special needs can be disciplined in a manner consistently with established school policies, handbooks, whatever the case may be. After 10 days, the IEP team has to determine whether or not the behavior that resulted in discipline is in fact a manifestation of the disability or not. And that decision does indeed rest exclusively with the IEP team. If the IEP team says that this is indeed a manifestation of disability, then those options that you mentioned come into play. Can a disciplinary record be expunged if indeed the IEP team rules that this is a manifestation of disability? It can. The IEP team can also say that it's not a manifestation of disability, in which case normal disciplinary action can proceed, and whether or not there is a recovery of special education services, example, if a student is suspended for more than 10 days, which can happen, it's pretty unusual, there might be some compensation of services, tutoring, whatever the case may be, to satisfy the goals of the IEP. But there is a process for that, that's true.
I want to make sure that parents know that there is a process, that the chain of command is not the normal chain of command. Because we've had some processes in the past where the normal chain of command was followed for a special needs student, resulting in thousands and thousands of dollars in legal fees. And I think it was handled wrong. I want to know why the information I would like to see, there are a lot of children on IEP with parents that don't understand their rights. Now, there are some that very heavily advocate for the rights, and maybe don't even notice it, that the IEP presents a different chain of command. They should not have gone through this chain of command. Why didn't anyone stop that from happening? And I don't want to see this happen again,
Well, see,
because this was not to come to us.
and it didn't.
It sure did.
As I recall, at the last board meeting, a parent made a request in open session, and that request was denied. So the board did not take the matter up.
It shouldn't have come to us at all.
If a parent makes a request, I can't keep a parent from making a request. But the board did not allow that course of
It
action, so
wasn't
the board did not.
satisfactorily handled below us. And I believe that I don't know the details, and I'm not gonna go into it about the IEP, but that should have been held exclusively in the IEP team. It should not have gone through the regular chain of command.
Well, just, the only other point that I would say, and it's not my intent to be argumentative, the thousands of dollars you referenced that were spent to make sure that the matter was handled correctly and in accordance with state law.
Yes, but this is federal.
And the federal government also gives the states the ability to implement the law. It's not quite as clear cut as
But we go by
you're suggesting.
I'll tell you one thing real quick, is you new board members, read your book, your mainstay board, so you'll be knowledgeable about what your position is as a school board member.
Well, and in that respect, I agree with what you're saying about IEPs. However, that is one of the duties of the school board, is to authorize discipline of children with disabilities pursuant to United States Code.
Okay.
So, at some point, it is not improper for it to come to this board. At what point that is, I'm not even going to speculate, because that would be individual.
Yeah, and I can tell you a couple of conditions that would come up immediately, that where the board would be involved. In the case of an expulsion, the board is involved specifically. I went through one of those in another town last year. It would also take board action to extend a suspension beyond 10 days. 10 days is the maximum that school officials such as Tina or myself could implement a suspension. The board may also have to authorize funding for compensatory services, because the board, when you vote, you are committing funds. So theoretically, if there were a situation where a student was disciplined, we went through the hearing, we had to have compensatory services, the board may have to vote to implement compensatory services because it requires expending money. So there are three of the more common examples that I'm familiar with where a board would be involved.
Well, I would disagree with you on one thing. The code requires the school board to authorize a suspension up to 10 days, not have nothing to do with it, and have it independently done through the superintendent or the principal. That should come to the board even if it's less than 10 days, is my point.
And your point is well taken. And in practice, the boards that I'm familiar with designate that authority to the building level principal. But if this board wants to entertain individual suspensions,
well, that's another motion.
I would like to know, what are we doing to inform the parents when a child with an IEP is being disciplined? What are we doing to inform the parents of their rights? Or we just assume they know? Because, I mean, there's some parents out there that really don't know anything, what's going on, and they're just gonna go, oh yeah, okay. And what I don't wanna see happen is you have some child with, say, autism, that is very antisocial and is acted up in class. And they get the normal discipline of being held after school and detention, where they get to sit by themselves in a room. Well, that's enjoyment. That's the exact wrong discipline, and we need to make sure that they're disciplined so that they can understand in conjunction with the disability, and that the behavior, that the discipline is appropriate. And that isn't something that we can do without the IEP team. And I am concerned that when a child with an IEP or a disability is disciplined, that I think, you send a note home with the parent, but the parent absolutely should be informed of their right to go through the IEP. So, of course they have it. We need to remind them. We need to do a better job of informing the parents of how to go about that.
Does the AOS have a policy on how this happens?
Yes? Well, I don't know if they could come.
not a policy, but the process.
Write a notice.
IEP team.
Hold on, guys.
And administration.
I would like to see when a discipline notice goes home, that a notice for a child that's on an IEP, that a notice fully disclosing every single thing that they can do to advocate for their child.
That's what I'm asking right now. Does the AOS and the special needs director have a policy that they go by when this happens?
Not a specific policy at the AOS level, so here's how it does happen. Each school handles discipline slightly differently. There are a lot of commonalities, there are basic notifications. If somebody's gonna get a detention, there's a slip. If it's a suspension, it's usually a letter. But your point about how does a parent know, the parent is informed specifically of their IEP rights through the IEP process. And indeed, in many cases around the district, the principal actually sits on an IEP team. And if there were concerns about a disciplinary procedure, a parent can request an IEP meeting. And I've been in a few of those where the principal is there and we're talking about some of these same issues. So a principal isn't going to make a disciplinary decision in the dark, particularly on an IEP student, a student with special needs. I know many times Tina picked up the phone and called our special education director prior to implementing any discipline, and that's a practice that I encourage with my principals around the district. So there is communication between special education land and administration on disciplinary matters.
I have a question, just from the outside, because my son was one. Is it protocol to have the children in that classroom pulled in to be interrogated about all that's going on with this other child? Is it, my son was asked to write up an incident report, Mr. Johnson, you know,
Yeah.
I've talked to you about that, and I was never informed.
And
That's
here-
wrong,
and
that's
here-
wrong.
and here-
And his anxiety is up here, and he
Hold on,
didn't
hold
wanna go
on.
to school anymore. He said, I told him, if you're pulled in to be interrogated, to tell them, I don't know, call my mother. I mean, that's wrong. He's there to learn his English, his math, his social studies. If there's an involvement with two children, and they're having a problem, it should be just those two children, the parents and the
Okay.
principal.
So here's-
Not the whole classroom
Okay,
pitting them against their friends.
let him
That
answer it,
is
let him
wrong.
answer,
I'm
okay?
sorry, I'm leaving, because that's
Would-
why I
would-
pulled
would-
out.
would you like to hear my answer?
No, because I've heard enough bullshit in my life. Thank you. Good luck,
Okay.
everybody.
Well, for the rest of the group, here is the answer to that question, because I believe it's pertinent to that discussion. We do not need to have a parent present, or parent permission. When I say we, the school department does not need to have a parent present to question a student. If you're wondering what the basis is behind that, school officials are specifically given in the law, and the Latin phrase is in loco parentis, which means to act in lieu of parents when the students are in our custody. And if you're wondering about that, that's standard training for all administrators coming up through the ranks. And here's why that would certainly be in the law and well within our authority to act. You can have a situation in a school that is an emergency, where a school official has to make a decision. It is well established in the law that a school administrator can indeed ask a student questions about what transpired in a particular incident, and indeed, administrators are required to gain as much information as possible because all students are entitled to due process. Here's a hypothetical example. Two students involved in something. I don't care if it's a fight, somebody pulled their hair, dipped the pigtails in the inkwell, threw a spitball, whatever, name it. An administrator has to research and gather as much information what happened. If you have a class, I have seen principals who were directed to go back and re-interview every single student in the class. Now, if the student is nervous or uncomfortable, can I have mommy or daddy come in? Absolutely. Do we need specific permission beforehand? The answer is no.
If that's during school hours, correct?
Yes, because when they're out of school and they're no longer physically on the premises or engaged in school activities, which is good for you as a coach, as you continue in your coaching experience, if you have a student that's on your bus, one of the training examples they use for principals and superintendents, what happens if a kid puts a pack of cigarettes in his gym bag? Smuggles a beer on the bus. Can you open up the gym bag and search it? The answer is yes, because they're participating in a school-sponsored event. They're in your custody as a coach on a school bus for the reasons that I mentioned.
But that wasn't what I meant. I meant there was a situation that the dates and times were down, and it was after school. It was after 2 o'clock, and that was an incident that had nothing to do with sports.
Yeah.
It happened that, 2 weeks before that,
Yeah.
these
Oh,
kids were,
yeah.
and it was the date and time, it's after school, and you told me I can't, but it's frustrating. That should have not happened then, because that was after 2 o'clock.
Okay.
After that bell,
So,
that's
yeah.
what was wrote in the statement on the times. And what also too, is if these things are written wrong on a day that this child wasn't even to school, on that day that this incident happened, and the parent has a copy of the school's attendance stating that it was an excused absent on that day, and on this paperwork it states that this was the day that this happened, how can it still go through that this child is still being punished?
Well, go ahead.
That's, two things that I want to know. I want to know it had nothing to do with sports. This was after school. Two of these children were questioned. It's written right in the paperwork. And then, like I said, the other is
the date that was written is the day my son, excuse me, I wasn't supposed to, but the student wasn't even to school for school records. The parent has a copy of that. So how can this child still be reported, still sent in?
And some of the dates are 2016.
That's,
We're getting into the specifics.
No,
here.
No, this is about the IEP.
Yep.
When I had spoke to Mr. Johnson, asking about his IEP, asking about Miss Cushing, you told me that you didn't even have to let her know. You did not have to talk to Miss Cushing and let her know anything. When in thing is said that there was a full copy and a full discussion with Miss Cushing, and she knew everything about it. But then when I spoke to Miss Cushing, she knew absolutely nothing about it, didn't even know it had even happened. So, if I was supposed to be able to talk to the person in charge of IEP, how come you told me that it has nothing to do with IEP and you make the final decision?
Yep.
So it has nothing to do with IEP if someone has that.
In fairness,
Because I'm getting confused.
Yeah, we are the parents, are getting kicked.
so here's the answer. It's the same one I told you, and I'll say it again. As I indicated earlier, first 10 days, the student can be disciplined like any other student. And I don't need permission from the IEP to do that. After 10 days, manifestation of disability hearing. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Which date do you use? Which date do you use? Do you use the date that it actually happened? Do you use the date that's on the report? Which date do you use?
Because it was well over 2 weeks.
2 weeks for what?
Before we was even told there was anything going on.
Yeah.
But I mean, the
So
date
isn't
that
that
it
past 10
happened
days?
was
Are
one
you-
day. The date that was on the report says it happened another day, that this child wasn't even in school. So which date do you use for this 10 days? Is it the date that it
No,
happened? The
you
date
are,
that's written down?
Mrs. Sawtelle, you're confusing.
No, I wanna know what date
And
you're
I will
supposed to
answer the
use.
question. The 10 days I'm referring to are the maximum number of days a student can be suspended. The way you are describing 10 days, you're using that as a
Okay.
notification period. And to answer your question, Mr. Sawtelle, in fairness, while a matter is under investigation, the investigation takes as long as it takes. There is no time limit on investigation. If a principal gets a report that something happened on a given date, if it takes 3 weeks to investigate, then it takes 3 weeks to investigate.
Isn't that report what I was supposed to get a copy of?
Mr. Sawtelle,
I never did, but it's in the handbook.
you have the material
Mr. Johnson, you're full
already.
of crap that's coming out your ears.
Mr. Sawtelle,
Okay,
we've
okay.
talked about this before.
Sorry, yes, we have, and I get a different story every single time.
Tracy, we're getting a little too much here, okay?
No, we just don't want this to happen again to
Well,
another child.
I'm trying to prevent this, but I'm really
Right.
trying to prevent from bringing an individual case up.
Right, but we just
okay?
don't want it to happen again to
Because
some other child.
We're
I've
trying-
got
we're trying-
emails I'll bring
We're
up
trying
to
to
you.
work on this, okay? Insults don't help, name calling doesn't help,
I know it,
please stop,
but when he
please stop.
tells all
okay?
the different stories, it's,
Please stop.
Stephanie, thank you
Go
for
ahead.
bringing this tonight to the
Yep,
board.
could this be resolved with the IEP team?
With what legal result?
The whole issue that had,
This particular
I
issue
get-
has been closed.
yeah,
Are you
it's
talking
been
about
closed in
moving-
your end in that, it was festering for a long time there. It was brought to us, and, could it go back to the IEP team?
Could what go back?
The whole decision. The decision, the matter to be investigated properly by the IEP team. And if they so desire, to encourage, to expunge the record, bring
Okay.
that to us, and I say sure.
The IEP team doesn't investigate anything.
No, but they can have a
However-
full discussion.
As I indicated, a parent can request an IEP meeting at any time and can discuss the matter as long as they want. A parent can indeed request that a disciplinary record be expunged. A parent can make that request, a parent can set up that meeting.
Can they have that in writing every time the
There you
discipline,
go.
so that they are aware of
Okay.
the rights?
Can
I
you
would,
request
I
that?
would
Can
like
you
the
request
parents
that
aware
meeting?
of their rights.
I've notified that. Notify special education
and
parent.
he told me that it was nothing to do with, Ms. Cushing with the IEP. Nothing at all. He told me it was all up to him. It had nothing to do with
And
that.
I told you that she doesn't have anything to do with discipline, and that's true.
So,
Okay, if we can, have you request
just
that, have you
confused.
request that meeting?
No, I didn't know I even could.
Okay.
You didn't know that you could request an IEP meeting?
Okay.
we wanted to
About
discuss
the problem, no, I did not.
responding it off his record.
Okay, so, right now, he's told you you can do that.
Oh,
Please do that in writing, okay? And we'll get that done.
All right, thank you.
My question is, can the AOS or the school department in Lubec here review the disciplinary procedures for special needs students with IEPs? And actually put something in writing as far as what our policy will be going forward from here? Because I think, you know,
Is there a motion?
I'll move that.
Can I hear the motion again, please?
spell out the motion, how you want it to
The
say.
motion would be to have the, the AOS and
It would be Lubec School Department.
Lubec School Department to
put in writing the procedures for disciplining students and notifying parents when the students have an IEP.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion on it?
They have to be given that, when they're disciplined,
Yep.
it has to be given with the discipline notice.
Okay, I have,
Procedures and
okay, separate motion, let's vote on this one.
Okay, everyone understand the motion, what's on the floor?
I have put in writing and notify parents the procedures of,
discipline and notifying parents.
Disciplining a child with an IEP.
With an IEP.
I'd like a timeline put on this. Can we say 14 days? Next meeting, it should be implemented?
for me, you're pushing me. School opens Tuesday, I teach half a
Isn't
day.
it coming from the special ed director?
Oh, no.
No, because you're asking for disciplinary procedures for special education students, methodology to notify parents. That document, that I'd say, the AOS doesn't have a policy to that effect, which was gonna lead me to why I said next motion. Because once you vote on this motion, I'm gonna ask the board to authorize me to contact our legal services and draw that up. Because our special education director is not a lawyer by trade, and this needs to be essentially legally tight. If we're gonna give it to parents and inform parents of their rights, which I have no problem doing, we're gonna make sure it's legally tight. One motion at a time.
I would think the AOS special director would have, a special education director would have some input in this.
Certainly.
She would
And I
have
would
to
expect
legal.
that to happen.
Yep. I'm sure it'll be a group effort.
I would think other school systems would have this.
I would think it'd be
Okay.
boilerplate somewhere. If
Yes,
it's not
it
here,
is.
it's
I've
gotta be
talked to
somewhere
parents
else.
from other schools. Yes, it is. It's nothing.
I mean,
Nearby,
here's the
Yes.
white paper.
like
In
where?
school
I'm
board
sure that
members
someone
in
wrote
Alice.
a white paper. It's
So-
probably in place, several places.
It's not anything that,
So the motion on the floor is what? Can you read it again, please?
I have reviewed disciplinary procedures, notified parents in writing to that effect as to how children with special needs will be disciplined. That's not a good way to frame it, but I think I captured the idea there.
Do you have it better, Tina?
I just have put in writing and notify parents the procedures of disciplining students with IEPs.
Rights and responsibilities.
Should we put in there about how you follow with the special needs?
I think contact information would be a nice thing to put in there. Contact information of the special ed director. We don't have a website, so people aren't readily available for that information.
So on this motion here, I've seconded. All in favor?
I made you down as making the motion, is it?
No, I did not make the motion. She made the motion, I seconded it. She kind of polished it up a little bit.
Mike, and what was the vote?
Unanimous. My next question is, do we need to have a few people work on this policy with the special ed director of the AOS? To kind of go over this and polish it up. for the legal team, which I agree with, yeah, we do have to have the legal team look at it to make sure that, you know, it is something we can implement and something we can stand behind. But again, based on what I'm seeing here in several white papers, and this being one of them, I'm sure this is in place and implemented somewhere already, maybe even in the state of Maine.
Trish was suggesting that in Callis they have.
I talked to school board members in Callis and stuff, and a matter of fact, was told that sometimes they've even gone above what the superintendent, the school board itself took it upon themselves. When the parent came in with all the information, they went above the superintendent and overturned the suspension of the child. Because that was a specific question that I asked.
So what is your question?
My question is, do you want to have a subcommittee
Of
work
board
on
members?
this with the special education director, Beth Cushing, to kind of refine this and polish this based on, you know, what's out there, and find out what other schools in Maine or in New England are implementing a policy like this.
Is that a motion?
We've already moved to.
Well, let's talk about a subcommittee to work with the director of special education.
Any feelings on this, how a subcommittee would work? Any thoughts, any ideas? Would that be something that would be worthwhile putting together?
Without a subcommittee, would it be you, Tina, that researched it, or would it be you?
In this case, without a subcommittee, it's gonna be the special education director, it'll be myself, and it will be in concert with our legal services.
That sounds fine.
I wanna make sure the board's comfortable with it. I can go either way. If there are a couple of you who wanna join us, that's fine with me, but
Can it pass by the board before it's implemented?
that is
Absolutely.
a requirement to implement any policy. It requires a board vote.
No, not to come to us.
Okay. So there you go.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
A follow-up on what I think Ellen was asking of the superintendent, and that was about questioning other children and what they saw.
Yeah.
I think that's what she was upset about.
Yes.
And you were saying that you can do that without informing or talking to a parent first. So any child who happened to have seen an altercation can be brought in and asked, what did you see?
Right.
And this information is put down
Right.
in writing.
Right. It happens every day in schools.
Unless
all
the
over
child
state.
says, no, I don't want to talk, which isn't going to happen. I'm not going to say that to him.
Oh, that happens a fair amount, actually. And when that happens, we call the parent, come in,
I
and
can't imagine a small child doing that. But I've heard of another incident where a parent was told the opinions of the children that saw it don't count because they're children. I think that's maybe what has Ellen upset. I don't know that situation.
Well,
So-
one thing with Ellen, it was the pity of the students too. I mean, Ellen, it's the pity thing that upset Ellen.
I'm concerned that there's two different things going on here because I know I've heard something different and another parent heard something different than what you're saying now. So is there a
I'm not,
rule about that parents can be aware of? Because I'd like to be aware of it if my daughter's at a
okay,
question.
the only rule that there is exactly what I shared. The school department, school officials essentially can act as parents when the children are in the school engaging in a school-sponsored activity. And indeed, we do not need permission to ask a student, hey, what did you see? There's an incident in the hallway. Somebody threw tomatoes in the cafeteria.
I understand what you're saying,
Okay.
but does that pertain to all situations? Because in that school, it has not in the past. And is it in a handbook somewhere so that as parents, we all know that this happens in all situations? So if you have a parent who say their child did something
Yep.
and they want to know what the other children saw, that's been written down. Do you see what I'm saying?
I think so.
Because
And
I
so,
know
to-
there was another parent in another incident with another child, and that parent was told that the children that saw this happen don't get to say anything, they're children.
Well, I'm not aware of.
So is it in a handbook is what I'm asking? Because I think it should be.
The answer is no, that's not in the handbook. What I described to you is actually in the law. And to further answer your question, I'm not aware of an incident where a comment was made that the opinion of a kid doesn't count, they're just kids. because it is very much a necessary operating function of any attempt at discipline to indeed gather as much information, which frequently is from kids.
Well, you may not be aware of it, but it has happened, so I'm just
Well,
asking,
I'm
is it
sorry,
in-
I'm sorry to hear that.
can it be out there so parents like myself know about this? Because I didn't know about it until I heard two different things going around. I thought, wow, that should maybe be clarified that, I'm not saying children
Yeah.
shouldn't be talked to, I'm not saying they should or shouldn't. I'm just saying that maybe we should all know they can be, and if your child happens to be the one that was having the incident, you have the right to see what the other children said. But, or is that an imposition on that child's
Okay.
personal,
So,
you know,
couple things,
space?
couple things that I would say. In most cases, we can't release information from one particular student to another student's parent
And there's
because
the
of
problem.
confidentiality. However, there are some specific cases where it is a requirement that the total information that was obtained through an investigation be shared.
what are those incidences?
I don't want to get into the specific nature of it. However, if a parent appeals, requests more information, then there are circumstances where that would have to be provided. And usually that's higher level infractions. There are examples where what a student says can be taken into consideration but would have to be confidential for other reasons. So the answer to your question is, no, it's not in the handbook. Yes, we have the right to interview students. I know that Mrs. Case described it as an interrogation, and I am troubled by that word, but I understand her position. And there are cases where that can happen. And I'm sorry to hear that the comment was made that a student's opinion doesn't count because they're a kid. We actually have an elementary school. That's all we have there, our kids.
But the parent doesn't have access to it, the information. If it's the parent of the child who had the issue or the child who was on the receiving end.
Yeah, I have actually had to say to a parent, I'm sorry, I can't talk about another student with you. I've actually had to say that.
Even though their child was
That's
involved.
difficult.
Should we make a motion to put this on an actual agenda sometime in the future?
I suppose that we can.
Okay. Mike,
You can put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
second.
So is that like, say, 10 students said somebody did something? So we'll write that down. This kid gets in trouble. 10 students write down, this kid did something. This is the way I'm trying to understand this. And then say an authority then said, I don't believe them. I don't think this student did it. I don't know.
To answer your question, Mr. Sawtell, at some point, the administrator has to make a decision. And there are many times where administrators have conflicting evidence. You might have exactly what you're talking about. 10 kids see this and say this. These 10 kids over here see this and say that. An administrator has to make the final decision. I don't have enough evidence. I'm not going to do any formal discipline, but I'm going to give everybody a stern warning because I can't prove anything. That's an administrative decision. Or an administrator might feel more confident in making a judgment call based on other factors. Past experience with a given child, most likely scenario, what did a teacher say, see, whatever. So ultimately,
Stereotyping.
ultimately what you're suggesting, Mr. Sawtell, is a possibility. 10 kids see this, 10 kids see something else, but ultimately the administrator has to make a decision.
I mean, like two different things. One could, something could be, something happened to someone in the 4th grade, 10 people said that. Okay. We're doing an investigation, say someone in the 8th grade, 10 people said this kid did this. Completely two different things. They're just kids. We ain't noticing that. I mean, if a person's gonna take what the kids say and have it be official, then I would think that if a bunch of students said something else, that would be official as well. You know what I mean? To make it a fair,
Right.
instead of, oh, I ain't believing them kids.
Right.
Or, I gotta believe these kids, because I know this one kid or
Right.
this one's parents over here.
Right, what you're describing, Mr. Sawtell, is the challenge that administrators face daily.
Like bias.
Well, it's not, I don't believe it's necessarily bias, but it's within the realm of possibility. I'm not gonna say that it doesn't happen.
I just want to understand.
Right.
You know, one thing I think our website, we have numbers that we can put on there that parents can find this information, like Parent Federation, or what you people have in these papers. Harassment, there's numbers, bullying, there's numbers. Parents need those types of channels.
My point is just that the parents of the children involved should, and I know you're saying that there are legal times when they can't, but should have access to what the other children have said about their child. If that makes sense.
I understand your concern,
I can't-
and I'm sorry if my answer appears to be confusing, but there are times when administrators have to observe confidentiality, and there are times when we are actually required to release information, and it does vary by the situation, I'm sorry.
I understand that. It often appears that it varies by the child. That's the situation from the parent's point of view. It's
Mhm.
difficult to accept. Some children, letter of the law, and other children, they're just kids. That's hard to accept.
Well, I can tell you, because we've recently had our district training for schools that started on the 27th, that the drumbeat coming out of Augusta is to be thorough with the students, to listen to what the students say. What you're describing, potential preferential treatment based upon, whatever.
That's what it looks like. I don't know if that's what
Right, I
it
mean,
is. I'm just saying, that's
been-
kind of what it looks like.
That's been a concern of parents as long as there have been
And
schools.
I'm not saying that's what's going on. I'm saying that's what it looks like. That's what
I
you hear
got it.
when you're a parent.
I understand your concern.
Consider the first reading of policy DKC, expense authorization and reimbursement, and I'm totally confused.
Okay.
So this is if I have to go into a meeting and so on like that, and I have to have lodging, vehicle reimbursement, mileage, and so on like that.
Right. Again, just looking for a first reading tonight, so spend some time with it if you haven't already, and we can look to take action next time. So I'm just looking to accept the first reading tonight.
I make a motion that we accept the first reading tonight of the DKC.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Now, it's 8:34 in the evening. I have better things to do than be here for 2.5 hours for a school board meeting. It seems we have a lot of stuff going on in the school board in the last year, a lot of stuff that needs to be addressed, a lot of issues. One of the things that I would like to consider at one of these meetings is actually having 2 meetings per month. I know it takes a lot, but we've got a lot of stuff going on. And what happens is, we go to a meeting now, our next meeting is in a month. A lot of things fall by the wayside, a lot of things kind of get pushed under the rug, and it's got to stop. And the only way I can foresee this actually correcting itself is going to a 2-week format. So, any discussion on that? Any suggestions? Go ahead.
But I would like to give one thing that came up recently as an example of how this could be very successful. Is we had an issue of Mr. and Mrs. Sawtell brought to us about basketball lighting. And it wasn't our issue, but we immediately gave it to the select board, who meets every 2 weeks. They immediately took the issue up. They immediately took action on there and directed Renee to do, what was right. The lights were up within a couple months. Now, if that was us, it would be 2 years from now. They're so much more efficient, and we have very important issues coming up that are going by the wayside, and that's basketball lighting, and we're talking about no buses, no, our boilers are in bad shape, we have a lot of issues and a lot more that we could be doing positive for the school. And we need to have better oversight, and we need to have 2 meetings a month. I think it should be standard, just like the select board.
And it's just 2 of those issues that she brought up. Number one, the buses, that came to light just this past week. And we have to move on that fairly fast. And, it's not right to have meetings by email or meetings by Skype or whatever it is. We need to have these meetings here in front of the public. We're talking about spending a lot of money. Boiler project that we're looking at down the road, it's $300,000 plus. We need to have everyone on point to make sure that nothing gets dropped by the wayside. Stuff that comes up, and it comes up every day. Things happen. Things need to be addressed, and they can't wait a month sometimes. So that's my reasoning for actually bringing this to the board and looking for motion on this, because I think it really has to be done. Maybe it's just for the next year. I don't know. Maybe it's forever. But I think there's so much that goes by the wayside because it's forgotten about or it's kind of put off, and we'll handle that in 2 months, so we'll table it till next month. We can't do that anymore.
Like the school board website, that could have been done, that was a year ago, I said, hear about that.
So I'm looking for motions from the board, what to do with this, and like I said, this is a suggestion, I want to have a discussion on this, and I want board input on this. I know it's a lot, especially with new board members coming on, it's like, I don't know if I signed up for this, but...
Well, that's the thing. This is our first meeting. We're coming to a meeting where it's been 2 months with no budget being addressed, and now we're being told that we should meet every 2 weeks. I personally would like to see what business comes up, because I understand this is not typical of school boards. I would like a little more personal experience in whether there's really a need for this.
Here's the thing, someone who's been on the board more than 3 years, and you can actually ask, there's a few other members who have been on the board, okay? These things come up weekly, and sometimes if they're not addressed within the next week or so, they kind of go by the wayside.
Well, you can do 1 meeting for 4 hours, or you can do 2 meetings for 2 hours.
Exactly. And all our meetings were going very long.
And things get forgotten, even if you go 4 hours. I mean, we're gonna go tonight, and there's a lot of things that we've had things we've tabled. There's things we haven't discussed yet, because the budget is the big one. I mean, if we were gonna discuss a budget and try to pass a budget tonight, we'd be here till midnight and beyond.
Longer.
Okay, so that's just and I understand what you're saying, I understand what you're getting at. But the thing is that I think a board meeting every other week should have been addressed probably 5, maybe 10 years ago. So, because this is important stuff what we're doing here, so.
I mean, I've got to kick in my 2 cents worth. All your concerns, very valid, and I'm conscious of the time as well. I've got 8:45, we're gonna be here at least 3 hours tonight, probably almost 3.5 before we're done tonight. My concern is this. The advantage that this group has is that you're the Lubec School Committee and only the Lubec School Committee. Give you some sense of what my schedule is. I'm gonna be in Perry on next Wednesday, Augusta on Friday. On Monday, the 10th, Pembroke Town Meeting, Tuesday the 11th, Pembroke School Committee meeting, Tuesday the 11th, Alexander School Committee meeting. The 13th, Charlotte Town Meeting, going to the next week, 14, 15, 17, Charlotte Board Meeting. Then the 18th and 19th and 20th, Eastport, and that's your regular slot. I've got 3 meetings a week. I also know in January I'm going to be negotiating a contract in Perry by law because their collective bargaining agreement expires. So I'm going to be putting extra hours in another town to negotiate their contract, and I'm their agent, so they can't negotiate without me. That's also law. It's not that I don't sense the level of work that we have, because I do. My office compiles the agenda. We've got 12 items under new business and a 3-page agenda. So your points about the level of work that needs to be done, absolutely, I don't dispute that. I am very concerned about whether or not I can physically be here.
Would it be easier if we just pulled out of the AOS and got our own superintendent?
I don't know whether it would be easier or not.
You're spread so thin already, but this is a need that Lubec has.
Well, I mean,
And if you can't fulfill that need, I mean, Lubec supports the AOS. I mean, we're the anchor. We pay more than any other school, and I understand other schools should have a fair shake too.
well, you
But
don't, you don't,
if
you
we
don't.
have needs here, we would,
Okay, well, couple things. You don't pay more than any other school. Perry's paying more than you this year that we're sitting in right now.
this year,
Yeah.
well, we were paying.
Well,
Sure.
and the trend is for you to go down because you're losing students. And as I
Wow.
mentioned earlier,
Trend.
cost sharing is
Trend.
determined by number of students. So your trend is down because your students are declining.
Mr. Johnson, one thing, in January 17th, 2014, they had a meeting where Superintendent Underwood wasn't there, and so Ms. Wormel was presiding as the administrator. Now, how often could that occur, where you don't have to be there?
So that, I wouldn't recommend it as a practice, but I can't say that it's impossible. The concern would be
I
whether,
don't have superintendent law skills. So there could be things that you ask me that I simply say, I have to talk to
Well,
the
we could table it.
superintendent.
They could
Well, we would
table it.
know something based on what we put the agenda on, whether you were on thin ice.
Would it be possible to stay? Is that legal?
it is legal.
Yeah, it is.
Then you wouldn't have to make that, I mean,
Yeah, but
That-
if you're
That's
at
how-
a meeting, it doesn't,
That's a possibility.
if you're at a meeting already,
Oh.
though, you can't be on Skype.
Yeah, but,
How do the other towns
Well-
get this time?
excuse me?
How do you get the extra time with the other towns?
I did.
You know what I mean? Because you just listed all these other things that you had to do with the other
Yeah.
towns. So how does Lubec get on that? So you can see them more than whatever it is you're seeing them here for.
Well-
So all I know is once a month they're here.
Yep,
Or,
and
you know, so how do they get priority too to be fit into your schedule for?
Okay.
I don't think they get priority, it's just the
No, but I mean,
the
how do we
schedule of
get
the day.
Lubec on his?
Okay,
You know,
so,
like you said, you Perry.
So,
Just did this
yeah,
day.
so-
just did this day.
I'll answer your question. Part of the reason I rattled off September is because we're gonna be concluding business, I hope, in Charlotte, because that's a town meeting. I have to be at both a town meeting and a school board meeting, so that's a little unusual that I have to be at two meetings in the same month. Well, that's just because Charlotte voted down their budget in July, and we had the first town meeting, so I have to go back. So conceivably, my schedule will improve once I have some towns that finish up their business. On the 27th of September, I'm gonna be in Bering, where I hope their town meeting approves their budget. The 13th, we're voting in Charlotte again. The 20th is our regularly scheduled night in Lubec. So my point is, I've got some things right now, because we're finishing up budget work in the other towns, but it is within the realm of possibility that my calendar might ease up if we can get our business taken care of in some of the other towns. The other thing that I would point out to this group is that you are in control of the agenda. So in other words, if the agenda is crowded, you can say, we'll take it up next meeting. You don't have to put everything on the agenda. You've got control of it as a group. Specifically the chair. The chair runs the meetings,
But
he
then,
decides what
but
goes
then
on
if
the
we put
agenda.
things off, they don't get done at all.
Well,
That's the issue. The issue is, you know, we put things off and we table things now, and by the time the next agenda comes up, we've got 12 more items, and then 3 other items that we've tabled the previous meeting, and we've got to take care of. So,
if you have a presence, oh, sorry.
It seems like there are items on tonight's agenda that we could have done without Mr. Johnson.
yes, absolutely.
So maybe every other meeting could, I mean,
Yeah.
it would.
Well, there
we'd have to
are certain
craft
things that we
it,
don't
but-
really need to get into the nitty-gritty of the law and so on like that. I mean, we could turn around and approve buying school buses.
Right.
Or approve, you know, a policy that's, you know, already been put in place and so on like that to sign. Yes, so there are things that we can get out and do without him.
I mean, we're looking at the agenda at that point, I'm looking at the lunch prices, policy, the LCOC and the Lions Club flag, those are strictly local issues. You
Yeah.
don't necessarily need my guidance on
So,
that.
so the thing comes down to is basically, you know, I really do believe that we need to have 2 meetings a month. You know, whether or not we're gonna fill up the agenda on each meeting and so on like that, but you know, we don't really need to be here until 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, you know, trying to bang heads together on different things, including budgets and everything else, and cramming everything into one meeting, and then things get kind of pushed off to the side, and they fall apart
So
a month later.
would the board be willing to sort of weight the agenda? If you have some more meaty issues, we'll schedule it when I know I can be here, and if I can make a second one, okay, and some lesser items, we'll schedule on the off week, is that
Well,
something to think about?
until we can, you know, get a handle better on our schedule, whatever, maybe we might have to, you know, put it to the point where we can have 2 meetings a month, but one meeting might be on a Thursday night, or the standard meeting would be on the Thursday night,
Yeah.
and then another meeting might be on a Tuesday night, providing what is available at the town office.
Well,
And that's-
As long as we have
that's-
7 days' notice to put the agenda
Right,
out.
and that's a possibility, that's true.
I think it's really important that we keep it a standard, like Thursdays, because at the office, I was talking to Renee, she said Thursdays are open, there's no big deals. It's so that everybody gets used to that it's customary, every other Thursday, just like the select board, every other Wednesday. If we start jogging it around, people get confused and they aren't gonna show up. Maybe, you know, it would be really nice to have a large
Well,
audience.
and we can probably do that, as long as, you know, I mean, there isn't, you know, we're not gonna do an executive session. If he can't be here one
Sure.
particular day,
I understand that.
we're not gonna go into an executive session. We're
Maybe
not gonna
we could
discuss,
forward the
we're not
information.
gonna discuss, you know, things that, you know, could pertain to legal issues and something like that.
We can
on
discuss
that particular
websites.
night. We could.
Say something on the agenda come up, and then you run into a problem like, okay, yeah, then you can just table it.
Well, yeah,
until-
we've tabled
Then
several
it's
items here
in,
tonight,
right.
because, you know, we can't really move on them. There are different things that, you know, we need to look at first before we move on them, so we've tabled several of them, so that can happen. But the thing is, you know, we're looking at an agenda here tonight, you know, and it's coming on 9 o'clock, and we're not done yet. You know, we've got 2 more items and an executive session coming up, so.
So there have been
We're
a
not
few
done.
suggestions, let's move on it.
Okay, I make a motion that we move to, every other Thursday. 2 meetings a month.
I second that.
All in favor? All against? 4-1. Okay.
And you could send the agenda to him and he could.
We'll schedule that out, and after we'll look at different things and
So what
work
is
around
it,
our
first
schedule a
and
little bit,
third?
you know, not get
First
into
and
like
third
really
Thursday.
deep stuff.
The first and third.
Can I just be real rude, because I do have to leave, but I had 2 quick
Every Thursday.
questions.
You're never rude, Wanda. You're never rude.
On the Booster Club, I had parents ask me just today, how are they gonna contact, or who do they contact to get involved with that?
I would say between myself and the athletic director, between the two of us.
Okay. And if Mr. Johnson would just clarify, who was the soccer coach and who was the co-coach?
Soccer coach is Bill Ashby, and the co-coach is Kobe Sawyer. No, Sawtell, excuse me. It's late, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Mike?
Yes.
So if you look at the calendar, today's the 30th, in 2 weeks it's the 13th, and then 1 week after that we have a school board meeting.
Yeah, we'd have to probably do some adjusting and so on like that for the first month.
6th and 27th. Instead of it always was the 3rd Thursday. So,
Right, this,
yeah, and since ours, it was supposed to be the 3rd Thursday, but it got pushed back because Mr. Johnson was in the other town last
Right.
week.
I was
So
asked-
we had to get pushed back to this one.
I was asked if I could meet on the 23rd, and I had a vote in Dennisville on the 23rd.
okay, so somebody will send us a completely new
Yeah.
calendar.
Yeah.
All right.
It could
We'll
be the
figure it out.
2nd and 4th.
I think the first couple of meetings might be a little bit bumpy as far as schedule-wise, but I think, you know, we can work it out. It's really important, I think we really have to have, you know, eyes focused on this, and it's gonna take 2 months, 2 meetings a month to do it,
So
so.
when is our
It'll be
next
2 weeks.
meeting?
Our next scheduled meeting is
The 20th.
the 20th, okay?
Oh. 2
That's
weeks
our
will be the
next-
13th.
That's our next scheduled meeting is the 20th. what do you have on the 13th? You've got something going on the 13th, correct?
I do, yes. But I'm here on the 20th, because I build my calendar around the required date, so I'm here on the 20th for sure.
So I have a suggestion. Why don't we, the next meeting is in 3 weeks. Why don't we stick with that and then go to a 2-week schedule?
That might be probably the best thing to do right now.
I
I mean, we've handled a lot of stuff tonight, we've got a lot of stuff pushed out tonight, and, you know, go with that. So our next meeting will be on the 20th, and then we'll start the 2-week format after that.
Good idea.
And work things out
Michael,
from there.
somebody let Renee know so that she can put that on the town
Oh, yeah.
calendar because
Yeah.
your meetings are posted there.
Now we're gonna enter an executive session pursuant to statutory citation